A boy is running through the forest with a girl in his arms. She asks the divine forces, if they really exist, to help them at least this time. Suddenly, an electric arrow flies behind them, hitting a tree and injuring the heroine's cheek. The girl turns to the high cliff and recognizes Rahik as the attacker. The characters lock eyes. The man carrying the girl says that they need to move east without stopping. It has been 6 months since the heroine was drafted into this abnormal world. If the plan had failed, she would have been lying in the bed of the crown prince today, a victim, and she would be going crazy day after day, waiting for her death. During these reflections, the accomplice throws the distraught girl from her back to her arms and carries her away from the place. Vikan is the only one who tries to protect her, although his actions provoked Rahik. 6 months ago, a girl was forced to clean the divine sanctuary because she accidentally broke a vase of water and the Archbishop came in at the wrong time. While she complains about her fate, bodies in strange sarcophagi lie behind her. The maid admits that her life is not filled with rainbows and butterflies, but it is clearly better than that of these divine vessels. A week has passed since the end of the ceremony. They will be returned to their families if they do not wake up today. They will definitely be disappointed in the sanctuary. They have offered every possible prayer for 1,000 days to perform the initiation ceremony, but not a single girl has woken up. Suddenly, the red-haired stranger in the sarcophagus moves her eyelids. The maid wonders what she has imagined and abruptly jumps up to inform everyone of her discovery. The audience is shocked that the divine being has finally appeared, and it is the daughter of the Rommel family from the summer suburb. The heroine clearly remembers arguing with her younger sister about their trip, so she ran away from home. However, she does not know what happened after that. The girl wakes up in her room, and the same maid stands over her, asking how the divine being is feeling and explaining that her soul and body will be separate for now, but in a few days everything will be fine. The heroine does not understand who this stranger is and what she is saying. Her throat hurts so badly that she can't say anything, nor can she move. The maid says that she was told to knead the redhead's hands because the creature doesn't feel well. The girl thinks she is in a hospital and this stranger is a nurse. Suddenly, she hears a voice belonging to a mysterious man. He cannot believe that the vessel from the summer suburb was chosen. This even gives him a headache, but the heroine should not worry. The man comes closer and, bending down, explains that the girl now belongs to him, so her value will increase greatly. The redhead does not yet know who this person is. The stranger asks the maid if the heroine has eaten anything yet, and she denies it. Sitting down on the bed, Rakika orders her to send a letter to the Romelj family and tell them that the poisonous flower from the summer suburb has finally bloomed. The maid is to write that their daughter was sold to the highest bidder. The employee of the Divine Center asks in surprise if the Lord really wants to say such things to Duke Romelu, but is quickly silenced by the man's formidable presence. Having bowed instantly, the maid leaves the chambers, which makes the heroine feel a little uncomfortable. His Majesty offers the girl a little water. The redhead notes that he has the look of a dangerous man. Without receiving an answer, the Lord drinks a little from the glass and leans over to the unaware girl and gives her some liquid through a kiss. The heroine trembles because she cannot breathe through the water, so the man pulls away. He grabs her by the chin and says that she doesn't seem to know how to use her tongue, and it would be embarrassing if she started avoiding His Majesty. The man, after thinking about it, announces that from now on the prisoner's name is Legria. Now the heroine is really sure that this lord is crazy. 5 days have passed since she woke up in the imperial estate of Bellingham. The girl is sitting on a soft couch and breathing heavily. She can move her arms and legs, but still cannot walk. The only thing she can see through her window is the endless forest that surrounds the building. The girl would really like to know where she is. Suddenly, a woman comes into the room, visiting Legria only for a few minutes a day to examine her body. She doesn't think it's anything illegal or strange, so she doesn't think it's anything to do with her. However, they immediately come running if the heroine makes a sound. Obviously, they were assigned to keep an eye on Legria, but she can't walk, so escape is out of the question. It is better not to provoke anyone until there is an opportunity to get out of here. You should hide your emotions, stay calm, and gather your courage. The mother always told the heroine that she was not born a genius, so she had to control her mind. The daughter shouldn't laugh or cry because she would set a bad example for her sister before the competition. The mother has repeated many times that the emotions of others have a great influence on the younger child. If a girl can't do anything on her own, she shouldn't stand in her sister's way. The heroine gave up everything she wanted. Every day, Legria tried to adapt to her surroundings and escape from her problems. Meanwhile, her mother kept yelling at her daughter. Suddenly, someone called the name of the girl, who was immersed in deep memories and could not see anything around her. It turned out to be the Lord who came to visit the prisoner. Rahika, sitting down next to her, says that she is very stubborn and offers her strawberries, because it has been 5 days since she woke up, and she hasn't eaten anything yet, not even berries. Legria eats the fruit, and His Majesty begins to speak to the servants in a strange language, which is why the heroine does not understand a word, because it is definitely not English. The man introduces himself as Rahik Barakiel Belagram. He points his finger at the girl and calls her Legria. The woman is indignant and thinks that he has given her this nickname for nothing. She angrily says that this is not her name at all and wants to tell him her name, but is abruptly silenced. She is a crazy fool from high society, a girl with a spoiled personality, a poisonous flower of the summer suburbs, a woman who will not die even if she drinks pesticides, the nightmare of the entire Beatriz Romelier empire. Sitting in the Archbishop's office in a high church, Rahik angrily slams his hand on the table and asks the frightened man if the heroine will really become the crown princess. The priest makes an excuse that there is a completely different creature in her body now. The overlord menacingly asks if the archbishop thinks he is a fool. He can hide it as much as he wants, but the real truth cannot be destroyed. The soul of a sacred being enters the vessel that is best compatible with it. Rahik, unfolding the scroll, explains that he asked his people to gather as much information as possible about Beatriz Romelier, and his eyes were caught by the last 3 lines. She had made her brother blind by piercing his eyes with shards of glass, but the reason for these actions is unknown. The family severely punished her, after which Beatrice volunteered to become a divine vessel. However, Miss Legria is already ready to go to the imperial palace. She even shows some elegance. His Majesty says that an infinite number of people want to receive the blessing of a woman who has come from the divine world. There are only 6 months left before the wedding. During this time, it is necessary to rewrite the reputation of a crazy woman and turn her into a noble crown princess. Sacred beings react in much the same way when they realize their situation. They cry for days, throw curses, or deny the new reality by hiding their ears and eyes from the truth. As he continues to feed the girl, Rahik says that she reacts quite calmly, as if she has understood and accepted the whole situation, as if she had learned to reject everything and surrender from a young age. During his actions, the overlord touches the heroine's lips with his hands, which makes her blush and quickly turn away. The man notes that there is a certain humble elegance in her eyes. Legria shouts that His Majesty has some kind of fetish for human tongues, so she calls him insane. Rahik humors her and says that there is something to her words. I wonder what face the heroine will make when she finds out that he understands her. The girl panics and thinks about what to do, because she can't offend her lord. So she apologizes and explains that she didn't mean anything bad, and it's not His Majesty's fault. It is just very sad to be locked up, and Legria feels very sorry for her. The girl also has one request. She tries to ask Rahik for a map. The man does not answer, and just silently hands her another strawberry. He notes that it will be easier to communicate with the heroine than with the previous owner of the body. The girl realizes that His Majesty thinks she is a puppet already in his hands, so she must try to understand the mysterious language, at least a little. Until then, she has to pretend to be obedient. The heroine will eat everything, wear whatever they give her, and live humbly. Rahik, touching Legria's hair, notes that he did not think that such a fragile creature who can only rely on him would be so happy. However, he must wait. The girl's appearance is the result of a calling ceremony for which prayers have been poured out for thousands of days. Every living creature must find itself at Legria's tender feet, and then the Lord will become a perfect man. The heroine wonders why Rahik has come so close and what he wants to do. She tries to instinctively push him away and shouts that she wants to look in the mirror to see her face. She even says the word lens in different languages. To the man, it seems that the girl knows at least 4 divine languages, which is very shocking. In this world, only members of the imperial family and linguists can learn multiple languages. Rahik calmly takes the heroine's hands from his and explains that she will see herself on the day of the holy beginning ceremony, so she should wait a little longer. The Lord rises, and Legria wonders if he really understands her. Rahik calls for a maid named Eos and says that the heroine's condition seems to have improved, and therefore a normal dinner should be served. He himself goes to the divine sanctuary to prepare for the ceremony. At the shrine, the Archbishop greets the Lord. Rahik says that his face might crack from such a wide smile. The man asks how the holy creature is feeling. The priest understands His Majesty's frustration because he cannot even talk to him. Rahik notes that he has never had a pet before, so he wonders what it's like. The Archbishop was worried that he would be unhappy. Who would have thought that they would choose a vessel from the Romelier family? However, for His Majesty, it is wonderful. The Duke of Romelge was always finding excuses to remain neutral, but now Rahik would win him over to his side. The man thought the Duke was hoping for his daughter's return. There were rumors that he was going to marry the Lord of the Severek family, who also remained neutral. But in the end, everything turned out differently. It was not officially announced which family the next crown princess would come from. After the ceremony, there will definitely be unrest in the empire. Everyone will be scared that a mad dog has become a princess. However, a poisonous plant can become a medicine if used properly, because everyone around is too stupid. The Archbishop is convinced that if their child inherits the same brave spirit as Lady Beatriz, Rahik will be able to conquer the whole continent. The Lord points out that the priest is overdoing it with flattery. The Archbishop would like to be prepared, so he asks where the Emperor will stay after the ceremony. The priest reminds him that he can rest in their divine sanctuary. After all, this is a place for every knight. Holy knights are superhumans who are the foundation for the Bellingham Empire. They are usually born from the blood of divine beings. One mother can give birth to only one child who receives a blessing, regardless of gender. The first blessing of a holy knight occurred in the 15th century. It allowed them to use extraordinary strength. However, they need a divine being to survive. The longer the knight uses the power, the more he goes crazy. The prince argues that a divine being can quickly stabilize this state. The emperor, standing up, says that his mother, who died in her youth, was a sacred vessel. He had to calm her down, but he couldn't. That is why their relationship deteriorated very quickly. Approaching Rahik and touching his face, the emperor says that war with the Aritham Empire is inevitable. His son must find a mate before it begins. The prince's blessing can only be fully revealed with her. Rahik, looking at the fresco, explains to the Archbishop that even he will not be spared. He must fall on his knees before this thing. The prince grew up watching the knights go crazy without a mate. Some became angry when the divine vessel refused to become partners, and others chose the path of self-destruction when the couple died. However, the man is not going to repeat their mistakes. Legria will completely obey him. His Majesty is about to leave when the Archbishop stops the man, because he has to figure out what to do with the barbarian whom his lord has imprisoned. He still hasn't eaten anything. Barbarians live a very long time. The boy can survive by eating only insects on the walls of the cell, so the Archbishop should not worry. It seems that this barbarian's name was Viken. Two girls walk through the forest, collecting various herbs. One of them asks Celine why Mormala is so expensive. She explains that it is a special plant that grows only in the sacred forest that surrounds the entire village. When the divine being inhales the scent or eats the food, the Mormala powder reduces the stress of entering a new environment, which helps to cope with the body's rejection. Most importantly, it becomes more trusting of people from this world. It is said that divine beings usually get angry when they arrive. However, the lady from the Romelier house is very different, because her eyes are full of kindness. Celine says that she was doing a hand massage, and the woman blessed her with her appearance. Perhaps she will even make the priestess her personal maid. Another girl who overhears the conversation tells Celine to stop screaming. She should have at least a little self-respect. The priestess probably wants to use the vessel. Celine objects, but the attacker silently turns over her entire bowl of herbs. They work here, and Legria is not even able to eat anything that is prepared for her. The woman is outraged that she has to serve the Empress only because of her lowest rank. Celine advises Anita not to take her anger out on the Crown Princess. Gathering herbs is their main job, and the creature is just a little confused right now. With these words, the aggressor grabs the priestess by the cloak's collar. Anita is annoyed that her colleague stutters all the time when she is nervous. A divine being will never be interested in an idiot like Celine. So it's time for this talentless crybaby to come to her senses. In her chambers, Legria orders Eos to open a window in a foreign language, because she has already learned some new words. They say that humans are the best at adaptation. No one taught her the language, but by listening quietly, the heroine was able to understand something. It looks like it's going to rain today, so the girl really likes the weather. The maid wonders if her mistress is tired of sitting in her room, because His Majesty has invited her to have tea in the garden today. Eos thinks that breathing the fresh air is quite good for you. The girl does not understand anything and just smiles. The maid orders her to bring the dress in, because it is the first time Lesria leaves the room and she has to look appropriate. The heroine is shocked that it was brought just for her. However, she is not sure that she will wear such a luxury even for free. Under one of the cloaks is underwear, which embarrasses the young immigrant from another world. The fashion designer offers Legria a nice dress without any jewelry, which looks rather delicate. It fits her perfectly. Rahik enters the room and asks if they have finished, because the man does not want to waste time. The heroine does not understand the intentions of this stranger, but his voice is like magical music to her ears. The fashion designer tells the girl, who is already wearing the outfit, that Investina is almost indistinguishable from other fabrics in appearance, but is known for its strength. Only one boutique in the empire can create these clothes without using toxic materials. Rahik, coming closer and taking the girl's hair in his hands, says that he doesn't like it because she looks better with a mess. The girl realizes that the man is unhappy and notes that he bought this dress for her. Smiling, the Lord confirms that this is true and orders her to bring something special. They are given a tray with collars. The heroine thinks that she has never seen a dog here before. His Majesty comes over and stands behind Legria. He explains that any color will suit such pale skin. The woman can't believe that the man is so crazy because he put on her collar. She tries to tear off the yoke, but nothing happens. Someone in the audience clicks their tongues, and the heroine realizes that even the servants do not like her appearance. The Lord approaches and orders Legria to stop. She should not harm herself, because the girl's body belongs to Rahik. The woman gives up in humiliation, because no one can help her here anyway. This man holds all the power in his hands. Suddenly, a voice in her head tells Legria to do the same to him. The heroine's head is cracking with pain, so she faints to Rahik's frightened scream. Someone continues to call out to her, so she is forced to open her eyes. Legria opens her eyes in the gazebo and does not realize where she is. Eos runs to her mistress and begins to tell her, crying tears, that she was very worried about the crown princess. The maid asks her intensely how she feels. This time, the maid persuaded the master to postpone the tea party, but she still doesn't understand why the mistress dared to do so. This time, they were lucky that Rahik forgave them. The heroine asks Eos to slow down a bit, because she doesn't understand anything. The maid continues to say that she was very worried and forbids her mistress to do this again, otherwise she will get into trouble. Eos's words do not bother the girl because they speak different languages. The heroine turns away and exhales heavily. The maid perceives this as another painful attack, so she immediately runs to the doctor. At this time, priestesses come out of the forest complaining about the rain. Anita notices the crown princess. She does not understand why the future ruler is wearing a collar around her neck. One of the girls says that she hates the divine being because she sits and relaxes, while they have to work hard every day. Anita grabs Celine and pushes her to the ground to show her the thing that is on Legria's body. She says that the priestess needs to become like her to serve the princess. The heroine does not understand what the women are doing. She assumes that the priestesses are mocking one of them. She recognizes the victim as the one who took care of her. Suddenly, the sounds of a dog barking, created by Celine, reach the girl's ears. Anita continues to convince her that the crown princess does not care. It is painful for the heroine to see how the priestess is being mocked. After all, she is a human being, not a dog. The girl thinks that she is going to go crazy soon, because here intelligent beings are treated as if they were ordinary animals. She clutches her head from the flood of thoughts and suddenly hears the voice again, tired of watching it. Legria's body moves without her consent. The woman gets up and walks barefoot to the priestesses in the rain. She menacingly orders everyone to come to her. When the girls do not move, the crown princess repeats her words. The priestesses note that she sounds like Lady Beatriz, so perhaps the divine being did not choose her. Anita yells at Celine because she thinks she has told her a lie. Hearing these words, the heroine comes closer and hits her attacker on the cheek with all her might. Anita is frozen in shock until she realizes who is controlling her body. She even speaks the local language. Legria orders Celine to get up and stand next to her. The priestess instantly stands up. Seeing this, Anita shouts that the crown princess's actions are unfair because she cannot just beat her. It was Celine's punishment for a job she did not do well. Anita is in charge of the students, so she is allowed to put others in their place. Taking the priestess by the chin, Legria says that it is a great insolence to argue with her. The woman will gladly relay all the words to His Majesty's maid. She will tell everything she has seen and heard. Anita realizes her mistake, so she quickly falls down in a bow and shouts that she will never open her mouth again. The heroine thinks that the arrogant priestess has realized her place. Suddenly, she is pierced by a sharp pain and regains the ability to control her body, but falls to her knees. Suddenly, someone appears behind the maids. The strangers have broken into the palace to destroy the divine being. Celine tries to lift her mistress, because they have come for her. The head of the gang orders them not to touch the priestesses because he does not want to see any more blood. The women can choose their own fate. Anita gets up and orders everyone to leave because no one wants to die for the crown princess. Celine tries to stop her because it is their sacred duty to protect Lady Legria. The priestess doesn't care, so everyone else follows her. The maid shouts that they are all cowards and assures the heroine that she can protect her herself. She begins to fend off the attackers with her basket. Legria recalls that she has had many hardships in her life, so she can handle it. However, sometimes there are too many victims. The head of the gang grabs Celine by the neck and then simply throws her aside. At this time, the heroine thinks about what they want from her. If they want to destroy the woman, then it will be easier for her. When the mercenary brings a knife over the heroine, Rahik shields her. He rushes at the criminals who dared to harm his future wife. The girl can't even tell if it's reality or a dream. A pink collar is visible around the man's neck. Back in the chambers, the woman told him that pink would look better than white. Eos hysterically asks what this means, while the princess asks the man to get up. She walks over to the tray and takes the pink collar, wondering how he wears it. The ruler explains that you need to pull on both sides, and to close it, you need to press it up to the characteristic tooth. The girl calmly repeats all the instructions, and then, to His Majesty's shocked gaze, fastens the pink collar around his neck. The fashion designer and the maid almost fall over from her actions. Legria notes that this color suits the man very well. The girl wakes up in a bed and doesn't understand what happened or how she managed to survive. Rahik is lying next to her. The heroine sees a pink thing around his neck and gently touches it. Legria realizes that he saved her. The husband wakes up from his wife's actions. He explains that she was in severe shock. The woman asks what happened because she does not understand anything. The overlord asks her how she knows their language. The girl admits that she doesn't know, because she just had a very bad headache and a voice she had never heard before. After that, her body lived its own life, and then, historically, the woman began to recall all the events. Without listening to her, Rahik grabs her hand and puts her on the bed in front of him. He advises her to forget everything because the past cannot be changed. Legria should rely on him. The man pulls her closer and hugs her tightly. The ashamed heroine asks what is happening, and the Lord explains that she is very wet and cold in the rain, so he is trying to warm her with the warmth of his body. The man says that no one is going to harm her and suggests that she relax and go to sleep. Sometimes the girl thinks that he is missing a few cogs in his head, but even though it seems like a delusion, His Majesty does not try to touch her in the wrong places. So he is a pretty good person. She can't remember the last time she slept with someone close to her. As she is falling asleep, the heroine thanks her savior for today. Hearing these words, the man smiles sincerely and gently, and they both relax in an embrace. Later, the girl is left alone in bed. The Lord, leaving the room, says that the body collector left a note demanding compensation for the destruction of his soldiers. If you do not give them money, they will continue to attack until they die. Eos says that their methods are just disgusting. She wonders how they can simply replace these fighters. Rahik explains that any organization that does this kind of thing has to stay in the shadows. However, this is not the case with Quiz, which has the nerve to come out into the light. Their master loves money too much. He is ready to bathe in a trash can to pick up a coin, so this rascal will never work at a loss. The man takes off the collar and gives it to the maid, who asks if His Majesty has any suspicions about who is behind this. Rahik is convinced that the culprit who gave this order belongs to a neutral faction. Whether it is the Emperor's faction, which he leads, or the neutral faction that the Duke of Romelin has gathered around him, or the faction of Archduke Mosgrato, the uncle of the Emperor, they all pursue the same goal: to gather as much power as possible on their side. First of all, the Duke planned to strengthen his faction using his daughter, and he was not going to join other groups. That is why he wanted to betroth her to a man from another family that was neutral. There are sure to be many people among the contenders who do not want to see Duke Romelius's daughter as crown princess. This will greatly influence his future decision. This is exactly what those who hired the attackers are trying to avoid. The man orders Eos to send someone to follow Archduke Mosgrato. He has practically abandoned his imitators, but still has a motive to attack Legria. As rumors spread, the nobles will begin to act in their own interests, as will the criminal. The prince must turn the situation in his favor as quickly as possible. When he arrives at the divine palace, the Archbishop is already on his knees and asking for his punishment. The priest cannot believe that this has happened a few days before the ceremony. The overlord passes by in silence and asks if the Archbishop has already enjoyed a lot of money and is now afraid of going to hell. If the future crown princess is killed on the territory of the church, the man must understand who will be responsible for this. The Archbishop hits his head on the floor again and says that it is all his fault. The priest will definitely increase the number of guards and strengthen the internal defense of the sanctuary so that not even a fly can get in. Rahik wonders if the temple has suffered any damage, but the disciples were not harmed. Because of this, His Majesty is once again convinced that Quiz is involved. The Archbishop assures him that the priestesses will be punished for running away and not protecting the princess. The Lord heard that among the girls there was one who disrespected Legria. I think her name was Anit. She is a leader among all the students, with good grades, but this rascal will stop at nothing to get ahead. The Archbishop shouts that the fool told all sorts of lies when she was interrogated, including that the future crown princess spoke to her in their language and hit the priestess in the face. These words surprise Rahik. Anit also noted that the mistress looked like Beatriz Romelier. The man recalls all the strange moments that happened that day and orders not to punish the escaped students for now. It is better to leave them alone for now. There must have been a reason why they behaved the way they did. The master says that it is time for him to leave, because he has to meet secretly with Duke Romelius. Rahik will be back for the ceremony. The Archbishop must make sure that Legria does not leave the room. And also the priest must put all the mormala powder they have into the spring. The Archbishop is very surprised by this, because their supplies are very expensive. A kilogram of powder is 10 times more expensive than a kilogram of gold. Holding the weapon to the Archbishop's throat, Rakit asks if the mormala is more valuable than his life. The priest begins to cry nervously and says that if they think about it, they can get everything for free. On the day of the ceremony, Eos and the fashion designer come to the hostess and happily announce that the time has come. Prince Rahik will be arriving soon, so they should get ready quickly. Legria doesn't know what kind of ceremony they are talking about until she is given special clothes. The overlord asks how the preparations are going, and the assistant informs her that everything is almost ready. The heroine will be taken to the spring as soon as she sits on the stretcher. Suddenly, screams are heard. Someone is actively objecting to such clothes from the chambers. The maids beg the lady not to resist, because they need to get it done before His Majesty arrives. The girl covers herself with a pillow and says that she looks too miserable as it is. Rahik enters the room and asks what kind of a mess is going on. The heroine is outraged by the behavior of the servants and demands an explanation from His Majesty. He notes that it was easier when the woman was just crying in his arms. The assistant takes out a jar of powder and hands it to the master. Legria says that for a minute she thought that the Lord was a really good person, but it turned out to be just a disappointment. His Majesty comes closer. He thought he was communicating very well with his future wife. The man asks her to let him know if the servants were rude, and the Lord will replace them quickly. The heroine shouts that everyone here is kind to her, except Rahik himself, so he should replace himself. The master is convinced that this is impossible. He takes out a powder and sprinkles it on the crown princess, which immediately calms her down. Rahik says that no one can replace him. The man says that he will take the girl to the source himself. Legria regains consciousness, lying on the tiles in front of the water, which is covered with flowers. Rahik appears behind her and explains that this is a sacred spring. It can wash away any dirt. The girl is outraged by the prince's perversions, who smiles happily. Rahik asks Legria to calm down, because he cannot be frightened by threats. The heroine stands up and says that she is leaving and is not going to take part in this. However, the girl cannot move and is caught by the master. She won't move for a while, so she has to trust him, because resistance will not do any good. Rahik says that he admires the girl's behavior and repeats the same thing in Legria's language. The heroine is outraged that he knew Korean and did not say anything about it. His Majesty picks up his wife and notes that there was no reason to say anything. The number of divine languages a being knows and the way it behaves in different situations helps to determine the right knight for the position. However, the heroine has already been chosen as the crown princess, so everything else is just a formality. It seems to Rahik that the girl is more at ease here, because all the mormala powder has been poured into the spring. Legria asks him to answer honestly whether the Lord kidnapped her because her mother asked him to. The woman begs him to say at least something substantive, because she knows nothing about this place. The man thinks it's time to face the truth, because they are only wasting time. He notes that her red hair is beautiful, which makes the heroine blush. Legria orders him to stop changing the subject, because her hair has always been black, and she wanted to ask about that too. Rahik explains that she was not given a mirror because of this. If she is interested in the reason, she will understand everything when she looks in it. However, the mirror is located in the center of the spring, at the very bottom. It cannot move normally, so the Lord says that he will help if the heroine asks. The girl asks if he really thinks that Legria will beg. The girl pushes him away and grumbles that the mirror is really better off at the bottom. She pours water over the prince and hides in its thickness, while the man remains doomedly silent. Legria has been swimming for quite some time, but she still can't see the bottom. She doesn't know what to do now, because she realizes that she can't do it alone. If something goes wrong, she will die. Suddenly, she hears the voice in her head again. It says that everything is fine and that she should just ask Rahik for help, because that's all she can do, and her husband will definitely like her. These words make the girl keep moving because she doesn't want to rely on the prince, and she doesn't want to do what he would like. No one can manipulate Legria. Finally, the crown princess reaches the mirror, and a voice says her name is Beatriz Romelier, and asks if the heroine is well settled in the captured body of the most beautiful creature. Legria touches the reflection, which is smiling wickedly, and thinks that it's all a dream. She can't breathe because she's been underwater too long. If she does not return to the mountain now, she will simply suffocate. Someone pulls the woman by the hand into a mirror, and now she is sitting in a dry castle. Beatriz says it will be better when she coughs out the moisture. It is quite painful, but Romelia is glad that Legria did not beg Rahik to save her. Beatriz explains that they are in her inner world. The heroine realizes that she is the owner of this body, and they have already met once. Then the woman simply could not resist, because she was tired of this abuse. Beatriz knows what the copy is thinking, so she will try to answer all the questions that are in her head. Before doing so, however, she wants to change the sad atmosphere and invites Legria to sit down at the table with sweets that instantly appears in front of them. The girl thinks she is in a fairy tale. Beatriz says that if the woman is surprised by her every action, the conversation will never end. As she said earlier, the heroine has taken over her body. Romelier asks if Legria has a reason to return. The girl does not understand what she means. Beatriz clarifies that she has seen her dreams. Even if she returns, no one will be waiting for her or loving her. Legria says that the question was not about her future fate at all. The woman simply does not know how she ended up in someone else's body. Beatriz notes that if she keeps asking, she will only get a headache. It is enough to realize that the old men from the sanctuary prayed for thousands of days and called Legria into this world. To be honest, Beatriz does not understand how it happened. After drinking the tea, she notices that she can't taste it or hear any sounds. Romelier continues that creatures cannot usually talk like that. The woman breaks down and screams that she is disgusting even for hell. However, she quickly calms down and says that the heroine can stay here. Legria will never see her mother and sister again, so she will be free from their abuse. And here you can get what you really want. This is freedom. Beatriz learned that this is what the copy wants, to live her last years in freedom. Romelia, pulling the girl along, says that they should take a walk. The woman brings Legria into the room and shows her a huge ball of black threads. This is Rahik's tangled soul. From that moment on, they will unravel it step by step. The heroine is shocked that she has to do all this. When she tries, she is surprised to see that she succeeds. Beatriz knew she could do it on the first try. Legria asks what it's all about, and Romelia explains that Rahik will be normal when she's done. The further the heroine goes, the more the prince will trust her. For example, he will lie at her feet in tears. Beatriz already wants to see this. The girl realizes that she has been dragged here to tell everything. Romelia explains that he cannot do this on his own, because the inner world of a holy knight is accessible only to a divine being. The woman sees this ball only because Legria is with her now. She will try to teach the heroine everything she knows. During the day, the girl will receive the knowledge of the crown princess, and at night, she will meet with Beatriz and practice. The heroine actively objects because she does not need this title and this position. Romelius advises her to listen carefully, because he will give her sincere advice. Legria should not say that she does not want to become a princess. The reason is simple. If she refuses, the woman will destroy her copy. And no one will help her, not even Rahik. No one will throw the girl away because it will be a waste of power, so the heroine will be sold into slavery. Even after that, she doesn't want to be a crown princess and get such an important position. Legria thinks that she cannot handle such responsibility. Romelia thinks that it would be good if the woman was born her sister. The girl has to play the role of a princess until she has a chance to escape. The heroine stole Beatriz's body, so she could fulfill this request. The woman tearfully asks if Legria wants it to become a toy of some stupid knight. The girl apologizes for her selfishness. Romelia is convinced that they will make a good team. The copy should follow her lead. It is not only men who should keep their shoulders broad. You should lift your chin up a little and your chest forward. You need to appear confident and brazen so that no one dares to underestimate Legria. She also has to take advantage of her position and find someone to side with the crown princess. You can use anyone, even your friends. The heroine is surprised that she has no friends. Beatriz advises her to memorize the name of Fodor Jan Keverek. He is a friend of Lady Romelia's, and he is quite stubborn. He also hates the divine vessel system. He will definitely want to take out his anger on the girl. She must not panic, be brave, and say that she cannot believe that Fodor is threatening a young and weak lady. After that, he dare not call himself a knight. Legria repeats the entire monologue, and Beatriz praises her greatly. Now it's time for them to walk again. The woman can live as she wants, being in Romelia's body, laughing a lot and having fun. That's all for today, because the heroine won't last long if she stays here for a long time. The owner of the body brings the copy to the door, where nothing is visible, and pushes it inside. Beatriz adds that she will tell everything if Legria wants to, about the ugly nature of this world. The girl opens her eyes already in the water and abruptly surfaces. Rahik quickly pulls her to his side and, asking how his wife is feeling, orders her to cough up water. Hugging the girl, he says that if he hadn't helped her, she would have been in trouble. The heroine sits wrapped in a towel while the prince tries to feed her and notes that the water had a strange taste. The man is surprised that she thinks the liquid tastes like that when she almost drowned when she looked in the mirror. Legria guesses that the flavor is similar to the spices that Eos used to add to her food, and is disgusted to think that it is bath salt. Rahik laughs and explains that it is mormala powder. The woman calls the prince a fool and demands an explanation. The knight complains that he has gone through so much trouble to get her food, and his wife calls him names. Legria says that she looked in the mirror as he told her to, so Rahik must explain where they are now. The Lord says that these are the sacred lands of the Belagram Empire, which are called Utrald. It was here that the divine being first appeared. A shrine was built in memory of this legend. The place from which Legria came is called the Divine World, and people who come from there are called divine beings. Simply put, this is not the world in which the heroine lived. Her soul moved to a new body. In total, according to the notes, at least 1,000 divine beings arrived here. However, Legria is different from everyone else because she was specially called to this generation. Therefore, other newcomers will receive a much worse treatment. This system exists on the voluntary giving of one's body for the ceremony. The ritual is performed only once a generation. 7 vessels are prepared, waiting to be chosen by a divine being. The girl asks again, and the man assures her that she herself has inhabited Beatriz's body. Legria understands Romelia's purpose, but wonders who Rahik is to her. Taking the berry in his hands, the prince says that it depends only on her choice. He can become the crown princess's noble husband, whom everyone will respect, or he can become a madman whom she will hate with all her heart. Legria does not want to believe that in their eyes the girl is just a guinea pig. Every word the master says makes everything inside her shrink. However, there is one thing that Rahik has not yet realized. She will unravel the mess inside him with her own hands. With these thoughts, the woman snatches the berry from His Majesty's hands under his satisfied gaze. Beatriz said that the man will be crawling at her feet when Legria is done. The girl thinks she would really like to see this painting. Rahik is amused that his future wife is going to dominate him. He leans over her and explains that a divine being chooses the body with which it is best compatible. And the heroine chose a crazy woman who thought people were bugs that needed to be crushed. Beatriz had always been so arrogant that His Majesty wanted to crush her. Having said that, he puts his hand on the princess's throat. The man feels an even pulse and asks why she is not even nervous. The girl explains that she has nothing to worry about, because the prince will not do anything. Hearing this, Rahik quickly leans closer to her, but the heroine slaps him on the cheek. The Lord says that he raises wild animals in the imperial garden. They consider him their master solely because of his strength, not because of his royal birth. Today, the man confidently decided to show why the animals obey him. Legria doesn't want to become the prince's toy, but she doesn't know what to do either. The girl remembers Beatriz's words and begins to look at His Majesty with a confident look. She takes him by the cheek and confesses that she has long wanted to tell him that Rahik is very handsome, wealthy, and has a huge fortune. He thinks that he has a lot to offer the heroine, but the man has nothing else but money. These words make the Lord stop and ask what it all means. The woman tells him that in her world, people fall in love and get married. Then why can't the crown prince choose when he gets married? Rahik asks if she is really suggesting that he do things the way people in her world do, because he will never be that attentive to his wife. The girl says that she didn't expect anything from her husband, she was just curious. The Lord must be honest with himself, because if he throws away all his wealth, nothing will remain of him. And he can't win her heart without that. Rahik is laughing because if Leria doesn't need status and jewelry, then it's unclear what the woman wants. The heroine explains that she only wants respect. At home, she was only ignored and humiliated, so she has no use for such a life. The Overlord reminds her that the divine being has no choice, as she came here from a completely different world, and therefore cannot escape. He is the only person the princess can rely on completely. Legria objects because she still has Fodor. Hearing this name, Rahik instantly turns dark and gets very angry. The Beatriz in her head tells her that her husband will trap her if things continue like this. She should not avoid his gaze and be a victim in the eyes of a predator. The more she is afraid, the higher her chin should be lifted so that the master does not look down on her. Seeing his wife's reaction, Rahik exhales and agrees. He swears that he will respect the crown princess if she so desires. The woman awkwardly notes that he shouldn't address her like that, because it makes her a little uncomfortable. His Majesty picks Legria up and remarks that he has a demanding princess. The heroine says that she can walk on her own, but the man convinces her that the stairs are too cold and she is already frozen. The incredible girl will start school tomorrow, and Rahik will personally appoint teachers and move her to another bedroom. The Lord also warns that the woman should not speak the names of other men in front of him and goes to the stairs. This is the end of the sacred ceremony, though not without problems. A month passes, and the last leaves finally fall from the trees. All this time, the heroine has been studying hard, from politics, culture, economics, and international relations to information about the sacred knights of the empire. Their power is far beyond the capabilities of an ordinary person, and this is the main reason why Belgraham is so strong. However, the knights pay a heavy price, constantly suffering from madness. Their inner worlds differ from each other, but they have something in common. Each knight falls into madness from the excessive use of power. His inner world is covered with darkness through which no light can penetrate. Only contact with a divine being can help. The creature and the knight become partners, and only one person can be purified. Of course, the heroine can alleviate the suffering of other knights, but only her partner can be completely cured. After receiving this information, the girl made a choice. As soon as she thought that she would not become the divine being Rahik because she could not escape, she heard screams from the doorway. Someone was tearfully begging the man to stop because he shouldn't barge in like that. Ignoring what he heard, Fodor enters the room. A voice in his head tells him that this is the character Lady Romelia was talking about. The man comes closer and calls the character Beatriz. Eos shouts that her name is Legria, and the guest should be more polite to the future princess. The knight turns his head menacingly and says that he just came to see the one who stole the body of his only friend. The maid objects, saying that it is not allowed to come here now, that tomorrow His Majesty will arrive for a banquet with the ambassadors, and that is when they should ask for permission. Beatriz points out that if she wants to talk to the visitor, she should act now, because there will be no other chance. She has to get Fodor on her side at any cost. Legria asks Eos to leave, at least for a minute. When they are alone, the girl says that she understands the guest's behavior. For him, she is an unwanted creature who has taken over his friend's body. The knight asks her not to use familiar names and to call him Sir Sevalake. The woman agrees and notes that she has managed to meet the mind of Lady Romelia. The guest asks not to consider him stupid, because after a divine being inhabits the body, nothing of the previous owner remains in the body, and he knows this very well. The knight turns around and wants to leave, because he already realizes that he should not have come. Beatriz orders the heroine to shout that Fodor is going to marry her. This phrase stops the man, and the girl explains that his friend asked him to do so. Lady Romelia answered like this every time Fodor said that she meant a lot to him. In addition, the woman told the heroine a lot more, at least what they knew about their future as a couple since childhood. The girl stands up and continues that as a child, the knight was a very weak child, so Cecil was often insulted by his peers, and Beatriz stood up for him an infinite number of times. Legria wants to say something else, but sees Fodor's tears. The woman did not want to bring her husband to such a state, even though he looks cold, but he cares for Romelia very much. The heroine has already managed to wipe a tear from his face when the knight abruptly turns away, but moisture remains on her finger. Suddenly, the girl is transported to another world, but she is not surprised. The princess asks where she is now, and Beatriz explains that they are in Fodor's inner world. The voice in her head says that there is no need to wipe away other people's tears. If you abruptly break the connection that has now been formed, it will break the minds of both people. It is very cold inside, and Lesria is surprised at how much everything around her has been destroyed. She sees a wreckage in front of her feet. The thought pops into her head that it's the same system as with Rahik, and that they just need to rebuild everything. The girl explains to Lady Romelia that she has been in the prince's mind only once, but his attitude towards her has become better. Perhaps this will work with Fodor as well. If the heroine wants to get closer, she needs to work harder. Beatriz notes that her words make sense, so the woman is proud of her copy. Over time, Legia's hands begin to freeze, and she realizes that she will not last long in the cold. When the princess has already rebuilt half of the wall, she suddenly falls into the snow from lack of strength. Lady Romilly asks how she feels, and the girl asks how much time has passed. The voice in her head says about 6 hours, because time passes differently here. The heroine apologizes to the woman for abusing her body, but the previous owner assures her that she feels fine. Legria feels a strange warmth and thinks she has a fever. Beatriz shouts that the girl needs to get up immediately because it is simply impossible for her to fall asleep now. However, the princess does not respond to her words. The divine being wakes up in her room in front of the fireplace. She is relieved to see that she has finally returned, even though she almost died in the cold. Someone asks her why she is so lighthearted. Fodor, who is sitting on the side, says that she is treating a body that doesn't even belong to Legria badly. The knight immediately says that he doesn't want to do this at all, but he can't let his friend's body go to waste, so he'll share his warmth for a minute. After this phrase, the man tightly hugs the shocked heroine by the shoulders and moves closer. The man notes that one should not underestimate the coldness he carries in his heart. If the girl connects her mind with his body and is careless, she may lose her life. The heroine, ashamed of his actions, asks him to take his hands away. Suddenly, she notices that her body has frostbite, which means that events in her inner world affect her physical state. Fodor explains that he can directly transmit heat to others, and the human wind has permeated her entire body, so there is no other way. The man puts the woman's hand to his body and continues that the princess can take it, and the angel knight doesn't care if the fingers fall off or not. When Legria was in Fodor's inner world, she thought that the relationship would become softer. However, it didn't work with him. The man notes that this is not all, because he has stopped the flow of heat and the second wave will soon come. Suddenly, the heroine abruptly loses consciousness, and Fodor the historical begs her to come to. The knight, clinging to the woman with all his might and crying hard, assures her that she will soon feel better. She just needs to be patient. He gives the princess all his warmth, but she does not wake up. In her mind, the heroine hears her sister's voice and sees her sitting in the middle of the hall at the piano. The girl notes that a grieving man is crying over Legria because the princess has taken his beloved away from him. Her sister always knew that she was heartless. Although, if you think about it, the heroine hasn't even shed a tear since she came into this world. The girl wonders how the musician could know this. The brunette shouts that even after moving into another body, Legria remains herself. She is only a depressed and insignificant person. The heroine denies this and explains that she doesn't cry only because she has no reason to in the new world. Even if her sister plays the piano badly, she will not have to sit in the shadow of her family. The woman says that no one will believe the heroine's words, but this is not the end. After that, Legria wakes up in bed and sees a dark figure at the window, asking how she is feeling. She thinks it's Fodor and thanks him for saving her life. However, the shadow returns, and she recognizes it as Rahik, who says that he warned the princess not to talk about other men in front of him. She quickly sits up on the bed and thinks about how she could have made such a mistake. She realizes that now she needs to restrain herself and not say anything unnecessary. The heroine asks when the prince returned, because he was busy with the ambassadors. Ignoring her words, the lord notes that not even a month has passed, and his wife has already brought her husband. The girl says that she did not want it to happen, it was an accident. His Majesty asks how the princess was able to even connect their minds. In Rahik's opinion, the woman did it on purpose. The heroine is still trying to stay calm and not waste her energy on anger. She says that as a lady, she should hang on every word, but now the princess has failed and it is entirely her fault. The prince barely restrains himself and pierces the painting with his sword in anger. Turning away, the man asks what is the difference between his world and Fodor's. The princess says that Rahik's gut is like a ball of feces dumped by a cat in the mud, while Cevilake's is the ruins of a castle that needs to be restored. The prince notes with irritation that she spent the whole night there. Legria did not expect to stay so long. Rahik didn't know how to believe just the heroine's words and offers a deal. He will allow her any physical contact with Fodor, except for too close. If the princess is confident in her strength, she will be able to walk on the edge of the blade. Legria wonders what will happen if she backs down, and the man falls to his knees in front of her. He says that he cannot give something so valuable to someone who hates him to the point of death. The girl does not know what is happening. Rahik is firmly convinced that in just 100 days, she will be begging him to make her the next princess. The heroine is surprised by the prince's behavior because it seems as if he has nothing better to do, but she accepts the terms of his proposal. However, the woman also puts forward one suggestion. The next day, the couple is sitting at the table. Rahik wonders how such an unambitious person can become a crown princess. Other saints have always tried to get ahead and get a title. Perhaps he is missing something. Legria only needs to become his partner, hug him, shed a few tears, and the man will lay his way across the world at her feet. The princess is convinced that she can do it on her own. Beatriz asks the heroine to stop being so stubborn, because the only way to survive is to become Rahik's wife. The girl believes that some people really only pursue riches, but she wants to live her life next to her loved one. The woman thinks that Fodor was a good chance, and she should have run away with him. And these words outrage Lady Romelia. Eos informs His Majesty that she has prepared everything. The Lord says that they should finish dinner and go for a walk right now. When the heroine asks where they will go, the husband replies that it will be a first date. His Majesty leads his wife to a room filled with musical instruments. All the instruments of her world are gathered here, as well as the sheet music. The girl's eyes are full of excitement, even though she has only said that she wants to play music. The man notes that she didn't mention anything specific, so he prepared everything he had. Legria wonders if the Lord is familiar with the culture of her world. Rahik denies it, but due to the presence of the saints, their state has been culturally enriched for a long time. If the princess wants, the man will gladly hire her tutor, but the sacred being objects. The piano brings back many memories for the princess. Legria thinks that she has tried many times to trust the prince. Their relationship is a strange and wrong cocktail of sympathy and dislike. The girl often resents him because of his obsessions, but she still hopes for the best. Remembering a melody, she starts playing Vivaldi's Winter Sonata. The woman chose this particular composition because it is snowing outside. The princess notes that His Majesty is too jealous and stubborn. The Lord asks if there are any melodies for other seasons, and the girl suggests playing something else. The man stops Legria and says that he wants to hear something that really reflects her. He sits down next to her and explains that an actor always brings a part of himself to the role. Playing a princess is beautiful, but there is no part of a woman in it. It's as if a person is just repeating something that has been memorized and perfected long ago. The divine being is outraged that His Majesty would even know about her. Rahik assures him that she is only capable of more, and that Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata is the right composition for her. Having said that, the prince begins to play and wonders why the princess doesn't want to play something that actually reflects all emotions. The man wonders if her parents taught her to play like that, but the heroine says that she has never had parents or a teacher. Sometimes her younger sister came to the woman's house, and when they played together, the girl often pointed out her mistakes. Legria's sister was a genius. Since childhood, she had an absolute ear for music, and at one of her performances, the younger one was given the title of Piano Fairy. The prince asks if his wife was jealous of her sister, and she confirms. The heroine despaired because she could never surpass her. Now that she has played to the Lord and he says she has talent, it sounds ridiculous. The princess has always wanted to surpass her sister, but now she is ashamed of herself at the thought of it. Rahik assures her that it's okay, because people always get scared and back down when they see someone stronger. Tears well up in the girl's eyes, and she turns to her husband. He says that he can invite a famous pianist to improve Laria's playing. Then the woman will be able to get out of the shadow of her sister, who takes away all hope, but the heroine has to do something in return. The princess blooms before our eyes and says she will do anything, which makes the Lord feel a little bit like asking for nothing. Approaching his wife, Rahik calmly begs for just one kiss. Lergia is surprised by how soft and gentle His Majesty's voice is. She assumes for a minute that this man who has everything from status to money has just been soothing her. His expression seems to say that the prince understands the heroine. The girl is about to fulfill the request, but she squeezes her eyes shut and hears Rahik start to laugh. The woman realizes that this rascal was just mocking her. The husband confirms that he is having so much fun that he is even ashamed to admit it, but His Majesty enjoys teasing his wife too much. Legria smiles, and the Lord is happy about it. A smile for a socialite is the main weapon in the harsh world of titles and ranks. Soon a reception will be held in the imperial palace in honor of the princess, where she will be introduced to high society. A perfect opportunity for Legria to prove himself. As her husband swore, he will invite a famous pianist named Schumann Vukovic. He is well over 70, but the teacher is still quite energetic and is considered the best in the empire. Now that the heroine has played the piano, they can try something else. For example, they could use stringed instruments. The woman confirms that she plays the cello well. Then Rahik decides that they shouldn't show off her piano skills right away. He needs to make Legria look like an art connoisseur. You always have to have a trick up your sleeve. Besides, playing musical instruments is not enough. You need to be good at dancing. The man points out that they will have to dance as a couple and looks offended because the girl does not want to accompany him. The woman argues that she has simply never danced with anyone before. The Lord comes closer and takes his wife's hands, asking her to relax and trust. The heroine thinks that her partner is a great dancer, and Rahik assures her that she has enough time to learn. The girl will become the most precious and beautiful stone that His Majesty will polish and bring to perfection. The prince leans closer and asks what perfume his wife wore today. She apologizes because she didn't put it on. The man jokes again that he can smell sweat, which makes the heroine worry. The prince says that he will have to tidy up his stomach and build perfect abs before he gets married. Legria asks what he is talking about, and the prince explains that she probably wants a handsome man by her side in bed. The girl blushes and complains that she is simply speechless. Rahik takes advantage of her embarrassment and kisses her hard. Legria realizes that the more she tries to escape from the prince, the more she is drawn into the sands. One day, it may cost the princess her life. The couple breaks off the kiss, and the girl still can't come to her senses. Rahik announces that this is all for today. Tomorrow, he will send some books to study, and next time he will not be so stubborn. The woman regains consciousness and says that she needs another maid. The princess has a candidate for the position. The man assures her that his future wife has enough maids. The princess knows this, but it seems like an ordinary request to her. Rahik apologizes and says that he will not be able to fulfill it in the near future. Then Legria flies up to the surprise knight and kisses him herself. The woman has already retreated, but the Lord still cannot recover. The divine creature repeats her question, which makes the man smile with delight. Fodor is sitting in the office of the captain of the Holy Knights, who has received the news that a private reception will be held in the big church in a week. The man asks if Cecil is going to attend. Fodor confirms that he must be there. The servant is wary because they do not know what the next prince will do. Didn't he find the captain in Her Majesty's bedroom a few days ago? Fodor tells Dietrich that his sister is alive. However, the boy does not believe it, because it is impossible to expel a saint's being from the body and return Beatriz's mind. Cecil is convinced that he will find this opportunity before it is too late and bring his beloved back. A week later, the priestesses are cleaning up the big temple. Anita is beaten on her hands for not being able to wash the floor properly, and the best aristocrats are going to be there. They announce that Her Majesty the Princess has arrived. Legria discusses the names of the months with Celine and passes Anita, who is shocked by what she sees. A maid takes the lady to a room where she will prepare for the ceremony. The banquet will take place in the sacred Hall of Fame. They say that the clothes will be brought here as well. Celine offers the lady a snack while she has time, but Legria is not hungry. Then Celine shows her a book about the 10 rules of behavior that one must learn before meeting nobles, and asks if the hostess wants to read it. The heroine objects and asks her to do her hair. After all, she already knows what she will do at the banquet. At the very least, stay away from Rahik. Then, perhaps, she will be approached by someone who is against the prince. A woman needs an ally who wants the fall of the ruler. Beatriz did not know that the owner of the body wanted freedom so badly. Legria has been trying to imagine marriage with the prince for a week, but no matter how hard she tries, she can only imagine horrible endings. Romelia is convinced that the girl knows nothing about bad endings. It's better to live comfortably in a cage than to go up into the sky and be destroyed by a hunter. The Lord enters the chambers and invites his wife to go to the ball with him. The heroine tells Beats that she is fed up with golden cages and smiles at her husband. At the banquet, it is announced that the main stars of the ball, the princess and the prince, have arrived. Rahik announces the beginning of the celebration and, together with his wife, makes his way through the crowd. Legria overhears everyone discussing her calm demeanor. Unlike Lady Romelia, the girl quietly remarks that she is not liked here. His Majesty is convinced that this is natural because the previous owner of the body was a mad dog. She had been called that since she was about 5 years old. Lady Romilly could come to a nice floral-themed party wearing a dress with dead plants. She also often went to the bar dressed in men's clothes, had bad habits, and spoke badly. Legria realizes that Beatriz does not care about anyone's opinion. The owner of the body notes that she has also made many enemies. The girl panics because she had planned to find someone to be her ally at the feast. Rahik notices her reaction and points out that his wife's reputation depends entirely on today. A woman can easily become a lady with whom the whole society falls in love. Therefore, the princess must be patient and smile, because it is her only weapon. Suddenly, someone calls out to His Majesty and asks to see the future mistress. Sir Rixon hasn't heard any good news lately because of the barbarian raids, but Rahik is like a balm to his soul, always strong and ready to listen. His Majesty has heard that the border is restless now. The aristocrat confirms. The barbarians have changed their tactics. There have already been 7 cases of them crossing the border, riding wild animals and laughing at the soldiers. What's worse, they are controlling the wild animals themselves. Sir Rixon looks at Legria suspiciously. He thinks that the only way out is to find the nest and burn them all with the cubs. The aristocrat asks what the princess thinks about this. The girl recognizes this look. Her mother and sister have been giving it to her for years. Looking at Rahik, the heroine realizes that this is a so-called test. He is trying to find out what kind of person the divine being is, and his answer will determine how the nobles will treat the future ruler. Will they continue to see the body as a mad dog, or will they bow down like the next princess? Since Legia does not answer for a long time, Sir Rixon concludes that the girl does not even have an opinion of her own. Probably, it is uncomfortable for a new saint to discuss such things. The heroine asks for permission to tell what she thinks about this, not as a divine being, but as a princess, and confidently goes forward. The Beatrice in her head screams that the woman is simply insane, because she knows nothing about Bellingham's political situation. The girl tries to shut her up, because Legria has already studied all the books that Rahik has assigned her. Lady Romelia is convinced that it would be much easier if the heroine just laughed and forgot about it all. The woman is convinced that she cannot retreat anymore, because she is preparing to be a princess. Therefore, she is forbidden to keep silent and hide behind her husband. Legria notes that she does not understand anything about wars, but she knows that they only increase the level of violence and hatred, and that one day she will have to pay dearly for it. Sir Rixon says that this is an interesting idea, but such ideas would put the whole country at risk. Legria counters that they are not only interesting, but also visionary. The man has just said that the only way out is to destroy the children as well, but how sincere he is in his words. The aristocrat is convinced that one spark is enough to ignite the fire of resistance. In his place, the princess, in order to determine the difference between the views of both sides, met with the leader of the barbarians and found out what they want. Sir Rixon is amused by the idea that such a noble person wants to talk to some primates. Legria announces that this is the basis of the concept of diplomacy. The knight is convinced that they have diplomats, but the savages are not even able to put together a single sentence. It seems that not only barbarians have difficulty understanding the meaning of words. The heroine says that war cannot be won by slaughter alone. Sometimes you need to be able to convince without starting a battle. Sir Rixon shouts that she cannot talk about the war because it is beyond understanding. Because a lady has no business giving advice and sticking her nose into military science. The woman objects because it is strange. First, the aristocrat brings up the topic himself, and then forbids her to get involved. Perhaps the man just decided to make fun of the princess. As for the qualities of a knight, Legria is not sure that Sir Rixon has such abilities. According to her knowledge of the Steppe Alliance, which the man calls animals, more inhabitants of the empire died because of this misunderstanding than the attackers. Sir Rixon shouts that the soldiers of Bellingham are fighting bravely to the death for the safety of their citizens, and no one dares to humiliate their army. Especially not a man who does not hold the title of knight and does not understand it. The aristocrat points his finger at Her Majesty and continues that this time they will forgive the heroine's frivolity, since she is just preparing to become a princess. Suddenly, a hand grabs the man's finger and twists it in the other direction. Legria stands frightened by Sir Rixon's screams. Rahik says that if the girl wants to conquer the barbarians and teach the bad ones good manners, she must crush them with force, so that the horror penetrates to the very bones. Then no one will object. This is how an uprising is suppressed, not by talking. Further discussion of this man's incompetence will continue in court. Sir Savalecki has to arrest him and take him to be executed. Fodor appears behind the heroine's back and silently passes her, approaching Rixon. The aristocrat also has to choose a commander and appoint him over the forces for which the nobleman was responsible. Joshua holds the documents for the temporary command. Taking Sir Rixon's clothes, Savalecki confirms that he will fulfill all the orders and leaves. Rahik invites the guests to continue the banquet and assures them that Legria can relax. The girl wonders if he was using the nobleman as bait. It becomes obvious that the man simply decided to test his wife. After all, the prince made the woman read thousands of documents, and Sir Rixon simply made the wrong move when he dared to look down on her. Rahik claims that he got rid of the aristocrat only because he disrespected the princess. Legria wonders if he really thinks that the knight will respect her more after this demonstration of cruelty. If the man doesn't want to be thrown to the dogs, then Rixon simply has no choice. After listening to the prince, the woman goes to play the cello in front of the audience. The first person to listen to her is the same 70-year-old man. When the melody ends, the audience claps its hands in satisfaction and praises the talent of the future ruler. Schumann Vukovic is simply delighted with one of Schubert's greatest masterpieces, which Legria has so tenderly performed. The woman objects because she definitely still has room to grow. Suddenly, an unexpected guest appears and happily announces that she has just arrived and is already listening to the cello. The stranger, approaching the heroine, calls her performance fabulous. Legria cannot understand who she is. The guest throws her arms around the princess and tells her that she missed her sister very much. She is surprised to note that the hostess does not recognize her. Legria does not remember Beatriz having a sister, only a brother. It is impossible for the Romelas to have another daughter, and one who is so grown up. The stranger whispers in the heroine's ear so that she does not pretend. And the girl has a hunch. Schumann stands up for the princess and explains that this is unheard of rudeness, and the visitor has simply confused her with someone else. The guest assures him that she was just very happy to see her sister, and calls herself the second flower of Giselle Lormel's summer garden. She is also Dietrich Lormel's sister. Rahik stands behind her and asks if she is really the daughter of the Lormel family. To be honest, this is the first time he has heard Giselle's name. The girl tells him that she has been in treatment for a long time, but has finally returned. Beatriz, in the character's head, assures her that this is the first time she has seen this imposter. The woman is convinced that the Duchess pulled her out of a ditch. Finally, the culprit herself appears, a cold-blooded witch, the great head of the Lormel family, known by many names. Her mother reminds her that she asked Giselle to wait a minute, but she ran off as if she hadn't heard her words. Rahik comes closer, and the Duchess greets His Majesty and apologizes for disturbing the atmosphere and being late. The second daughter informs him that she has prepared something today. The prince, looking at his wife, invites Giselle to show off her skills, because the princess will be playing right after her. The guest assures him that she is eager to hear her sister play. Lormel sits down at the piano and begins to play Beethoven's Emperor, which was her sister's favorite composition, and the one she played best of all. It is impossible to remain indifferent to this performance. The audience admires Giselle. Legria considers herself a fool because she thought that after running away to this world, where there would be no younger sister, she would be happy. This pain will forever remain in her heart, and no one will be able to overcome it. Rahik sees the princess's condition, so he reminds her of his words about her musical talents, the divine being played incredibly well, but without any fervor in her heart. The man is convinced that Legria's performance style would be better suited to a linear composition. For many years, the heroine could not surpass her younger sister, despite all her efforts. But now she has no right to give up. All the woman can do now is play the game the way she knows how. Even if the princess can't win, she won't do anything extra. An incredibly beautiful sonata by Beethoven begins to emerge from under her fingers. Rahik notices that the Duchess has just lost her daughter and immediately brought a new one. All eyes are now on Legria, not Giselle. And the only reason she decided to transfer her pretend daughter to the saint is that even if the heroine becomes a princess, it will only increase the value of the Lormel family as a neutral faction in the struggle. Legria stops and the audience bursts into loud applause. Schumann cries and assures her that it was fabulous. The melody made his heart soar, because this composition merges both pain and such a desirable freedom. The girl is embarrassed to receive his compliments and thanks him for them. Giselle flies up to her sister and says that she wants to talk to her and ask her where she learned to play so well. The girl is frightened by the attention, so she starts to feel dizzy. The second daughter does not let the princess go because she needs to know everything now. Lormel's hand is intercepted by Fodor, who orders the woman to take a step back. Giselle hasn't had an official ball yet, so this time he will forgive her for such stupid manners. If the guest continues to behave the same way, it will not end with warnings. Rahik comes closer and asks Sir Cecil to stop, although the princess does look tired. The man asks Fodor, who has already released Giselle's hand, to lead the heroine to her room for rest. The knight, under the angry gaze of his second daughter, fulfills the request and walks down the corridor with his former girlfriend. The girl thanks Sir Savile, but he simply remains silent and does not even want to talk to her. The woman sadly thinks that it is because of their last meeting. Suddenly, the aristocrat announces that in private, the heroine can simply call him Fodor. On the way out of the ball, Giselle shouts that her mother promised that she would shine in the high society, and now they are just leaving. She hadn't yet made her official debut, but she wanted to make at least some impression on the audience. By the end of the evening, no one was interested in the second daughter, and it was all because of Legria. The guest is outraged that her mother is simply silent to all her remarks. The Duchess says that she can see the girl's condition, but nothing will change if she starts to give in to her emotions. The woman notes menacingly that her daughter failed to charm Schumann Vukovich. Giselle excuses herself by saying that it was all because of her older sister, who has now become a saint, even though the girls arrived in the Bellingham Empire at the same time. Dietrich orders his guest to behave quietly because she is in a sacred temple. In addition, she should address the Duchess by her title and not call her mother, because the girl is just a fake. Lormel speaks angrily to her daughter. From this day forward, the woman has only realized that she needs to be taken to etiquette lessons. The Duchess quickly gets Giselle into the carriage and they drive home. All the while, a mysterious man has been watching them, interested in the conversation. Meanwhile, Legria thanks Fodor for his help. The man notes that the princess was incredible today and leaves her alone. Beatriz wonders what the heroine is going to do, but her legs just give out at the sight of her sister. The woman is convinced that it was her, because a divine being would never confuse this manner of play and behavior. Lady Romelia says that in this case, the Great Temple must be notified. When asked why, Beatriz explains everything easily. Illegally consecrated saints must be reported immediately to the church. The heroine can say that the Duchess has illegally summoned another saint to make a toy out of her for fun. Not all holy knights are so white and soft. A chill goes down Legria's spine, and she notices an open window. She rises to close it and wonders if Duchess Lormel is capable of such deeds. Beatriz convinces her that the woman will use the saint as a weapon because she needs divine power. The woman guesses that someone wants to establish a mind connection by force. Romelia says that after the connection between the knight and the saint, his behavior changes. The princess could already observe this on the example of Fodor. If a saint like Giselle connects her mind with knights without getting married, she can easily conquer them and bring them to her side. Legria is horrified to think that Fodor touched his second daughter when he was protecting her. Beatriz assures her that the girl has already linked her mind to him, so everything should be fine. In fact, the heroine has noticed Cevilake's soul. Now he is hers, which means that Giselle shouldn't even try to establish a connection with the man. The woman wonders if Fodor will now be able to establish a connection with someone else besides her. Lady Romelia believes that this is true, so when another saint tries to penetrate the knight's body, Legria will feel it. The girl wonders what will happen to Fodor if she just disappears one day. Beatriz is surprised that the princess is really worried about him now, because earlier she wanted to escape from Rahik with the help of Sir Cevilac. Suddenly, the heroine feels like she is going to throw up. Someone from the outside puts his hand to the mistress and says that she has turned pale, so she should take some medicine. Legria mechanically thanks and abruptly opens her eyes completely when she realizes that she is not alone in the room. The guy asks the princess to calm down and stop being scared because he doesn't want to hurt her. The guest came here out of curiosity. He wanted to see the woman his brother was going to marry. The man happily introduces himself as Awan. Legria is convinced that he is lying because she has never seen his name in the registry of the imperial family before. Awan tells her that he should not be there because he was born to one of His Majesty's maidservants. The man assures him that he wanted to introduce himself earlier, but there was no reason, and it is forbidden to see the princess for no reason. In any case, Awan is happy to meet his sister. The girl turns her gaze to the door. The guest says that she shouldn't do this, because if he leaves, there will be no one to help her. Therefore, the princess should just take the medicine, but Legria refuses. Awan insists that he just wants to make her life easier. The sacred being orders the boy to take the medicine first. The guest notes that distrust is a good trait that often helps people survive. The man confidently pours the contents of the jar into his mouth and says that nothing has happened. Now he forces Legria to do the same, but she abruptly breaks the medicine because of Awan's rudeness. The boy thought that the woman in front of him was an innocent and noble sheep, but even the future princess, it turns out, has such a predatory side. However, he still prefers rough girls. The creature orders the guest not to come closer, and the latter intensely asks what he has to do to earn the trust of his mistress. He has been waiting for their meeting for an unbearably long time. Suddenly, the young man's stomach begins to growl, and he tearfully says that he hasn't eaten anything for about 3 days. Awan apologizes and asks if his sister has any sandwiches or at least cookies. Fodor stands outside and wonders how a person can shine so brightly from the inside just because the soul has changed in the body. Beatriz's eyes seemed glassy every time they met. She was confused by her inactivity and devastated by her inner world. Inside her, Lady Romelia had died long ago. Legria is completely different. Her eyes are full of life, the girl shines with hope, will, and an unbridled desire for adventure. Without noticing it, Fodor starts to smile, but abruptly controls himself. He shouldn't get so hung up on it, because the woman is not Beatriz at all. Suddenly, the man hears one guard begging the other to let the other one come to his senses, otherwise they will be in big trouble. The captain of the knights approaches and asks what happened. The guard assures him that a few minutes ago his colleague was perfectly fine. He turned away for a minute, and the man had already fallen to the ground. Fodor notices a vial near the unconscious man's hand and smells the contents and identifies the Nemesis compound. Cevilac explains that if you boil the root of this flower with the right plants, you will get poison. Those who eat it will suffer from partial memory loss. The guard asks who would do such a thing. The fact that Fodor secretly met with the future ruler probably shouldn't be made public at will. The servant assures them that they should report the events of the night to Prince Rahik. Sir Cevilac objects, saying that His Majesty is in an important meeting with aristocrats. The guard does not think they should wait. Suddenly, the commander of the knights grabs him by the face and asks him to understand that his lord must not know. The guard shouts that this is treason, while Fodor pours poison into his mouth. It's all for the sake of protecting his beloved Beatriz. Meanwhile, the heroine sits in her room and watches Awan destroy all the sandwiches. The boy assures her that the food is delicious and asks if Legria made it herself. The girl explains that she does not know how to cook and that it was done by the maid Eos. The young man notes that there is no need to cook for the future princess. The woman says that the guest is quite strange and asks about his real identity. Awan calmly replies that it is a secret. Legria says that this is too many mysteries for one person. The young man says that he has a lot of questions and wonders if he can ask the girl one. The guest needs to know if the princess likes his brother, because he does not. He is a tyrant, so Awan feels sorry for the divine being because she liked the man. Approaching the young man, he asks if the princess wants to know everything about the Lord. If so, the woman must leave the great temple. When you turn to the left of the main building, you can see overgrown grasses in the bushes. There is an old tower with a lever that activates a secret passage. If Legria goes through it, she will see something interesting. The heroine hesitantly asks what it is, but the man is cunningly silent. At first, the girl looked like an innocent sheep to Awan, but the leash she was tied to was just a slight deception. She was cautious and suspicious of the unfamiliar medicine. The princess is a brave person who is not afraid to go against the wind. This fascinates the guest. The man touches the heroine's face and asks her not to move. He assures her that what is inside the tower is also a secret, and that her sister is very cute in her unpredictability. The guy doesn't know what to do because he seems to be in love. Awan asks if his sister will become his wife. They will not have children, but he will make sure that she does not deny herself anything and is happy. The princess silently gives the guest a kick in the butt, and tears come to her eyes from the pain. Legria wonders why men in this world are so obsessed with marriage. Perhaps marriage is a joke to them. Awan assures her that if she goes with him, she will live to a ripe old age and die young, like all the other saints. Before the heroine can recover, she hears Fodor's voice. The visitor pulls the princess closer to him and squeezes his fingers around her neck. He apologizes, but the illegitimate child needs the creature's help. Sevilake opens the door with her foot and enters the chambers without seeing Awan. Masquerade asks him not to look at him with such a humanizing gaze because he is not the world's evil, and the boy is also in pain. Fodor shouts that the guest is part of the imperial family and draws his weapon. The captain of the knights threatens and orders him to stop immediately. Awan suggests that they put aside the harsh words because they haven't seen each other for a long time, and focus on the way his fingers are tightening around the poor girl's throat. Normally, he would have responded to the threats, but now he is too hungry. The young man thanks his sister for her help and disappears into the darkness below him. Fodor asks if the lady is okay, but she doesn't answer. Later, the woman thinks about the whole situation and realizes that, judging by Sevilake's reaction, Awan is indeed Rahik's brother. However, she still doesn't know why he wanted to meet her so badly. Celine interrupts his thoughts. The maid is worried about her mistress's pale appearance, but she assures her that everything is fine. Legria mentions the old tower and suggests that Celine take a short walk before going to bed. The priestess assures her that it's cold outside, but the princess doesn't let that stop her. The heroine wonders if Sevilake sent her a message and if there are any rumors in the temple, but seeing the innocent reaction of the maid, she understands everything. She finds it strange that today is so quiet, as if nothing had happened yesterday. However, it is for the best for her. Finally, they reach the tower that Awan was talking about. Celine asks the owner to come back because it is starting to rain. Legria thinks about what to do with the maid. As soon as she sees the torn dress, the plan comes to her. The princess screams that she has tripped and torn her dress. If the future ruler appears in front of someone like this, her reputation will be ruined. Celine, unsuspectingly, runs to get a cloak for her lady, and the woman is finally left alone. Rahik rides in a carriage with the same young man who watched the scene of the Duchess leaving the palace. He tells us that Giselle is also a saint, although rarely, but such cases have already happened. For example, Agnes Linwood and Arkandor Warwick. Agnes, the elder sister, and Susanna, the younger sister, were also blood sisters who were called as divine beings. Agnes Linwood did not want to marry Arkandor Warwick. At one reception, she accidentally ran into Susanna, and the phenomenon of substitution occurred. In this case, the sisters were able to switch bodies. After that, Agnes escaped from the Empire, taking Suzanne's place. However, for unknown reasons, she soon returned to her own body. This made the saint go mad, and the story became public domain. Sir Warwick found out about the identity switch only 3 years after the wedding. They even had a child during the marriage. Now the prince understands what the Duchess is trying to achieve. His companion assures him that they must do everything to prevent the sisters from meeting each other. Suddenly, the carriage stops abruptly, and the lord smells blood. He looks out into the courtyard and sees a dark dirt beneath him. The man closes the carriage door so that his interlocutor cannot even look. Awan, who is sitting on the roof, says that his brother has come unarmed again. Rahik argues that he himself is a weapon, but this does not affect Mograto. He adds that his brother will lose the crown if he is so arrogant and self-confident. The prince asks what Awan wants. The younger man explains that His Majesty has ruined his life. Thanks to Rahik, Mograto has been hungry for 3 days and bored in a trap, unable to meet the future princess. The lord explains that he should not have done what he did, which caused such consequences. The prince asks if his coachman is still alive. Awan reminds him that he will not put his hands in the mud unless he is paid at least a coin. Rahik orders his brother to come down, but an arrow sharply grazes his cheek. The man notices the stares of dozens of barbarians from the bushes and calls Mograto a rat. Now he has even associated himself with the savages, but Awan objects because this is a one-time benefit. And these people are just a means to an end. The prince wants to add something else, but the attacker is already disappearing. The barbarians approach the carriage and look for Viken. Rahik recalls that this is the prisoner they stopped feeding. Now it's clear why this whole coven came here. The fact that they came back for their friend is very commendable, but frivolous. The prince begins to use his power and everything around him sparkles. Meanwhile, thanks to the twilight, Legria was able to find the door to the tower. She reaches in and finds the lever that activates the passage. A staircase in the darkness appears in front of the girl, and the princess thinks hard about whether to go there, but decides to. She cannot believe that there are places like this in the Great Temple. She is alarmed by the fact that Beatriz has suddenly fallen silent. The princess decides that she doesn't need the help of the body owner, but she suddenly trips and flies headlong. Fortunately, she was not badly bruised and continued on her way. Behind the door, she could see the light that Legria was heading for. The girl found herself in a passage with a terrible smell, reminiscent of a dungeon. The princess still does not understand how Rahik can be connected to this place. Further down the corridor, she hears screams and decides to check what's going on. She cautiously rounds the corner and sees a man being tortured. The prisoner notices the guest, but she quickly hides. The heroine is shocked at how she could be so guilty. Rahik's voice comes from the door through which Legria has just entered, asking if the barbarian has said anything yet. The girl quickly hides behind the nearest object as the prince walks by and says that he must open the window of the mouth himself. Legria wonders with fear why her future husband is here now. The overlord approaches the prisoner and asks if he is counting on the help of his friends. If so, his hopes are in vain, because they are also captured. Rahik wants to find out the location of the barbarian's camp and destroys one of Viken's friends. The prisoner cries out that he feels sorry for His Majesty, because he is just a son who will never be recognized by his own father. The prince says that greed on the part of the enemy is very nice. Legria, who is sitting around the corner, sees the man kill another man by striking him with lightning. The overlord's attendant hears the sounds, but the girl hides in time. Viken orders him to be killed because the barbarian is not afraid of death. Rahik objects because unless the prisoner tells him where their camp is, the prince will maim his friends and comrades. The barbarian is convinced that His Majesty is just a demon. The man is not moved by these words, because pity for a demon comes at a price. Rahik starts laughing terribly, and the girl thinks she is in some kind of a terrible dream. She needs to get out of here immediately before she is noticed. The princess runs to the door, but it is completely closed, and if you open it, the lord will definitely hear a creak. Legria runs down the stairs, and the prince hears the sound of her shoes. Rahik informs her that a rat has escaped into the dungeon and sends people to catch it. Deep inside, the heroine hoped that the lord was a good man. Even if he has a difficult character, he is definitely not that cruel. But now, the woman is grateful to Awan for the truth. Rahik is not a good man, and definitely not a kind one. You need to run away from someone like him immediately. Legria is sitting tiredly in the greenhouse when a dark figure calls out to her. The prince is standing in front of the tower, and a servant reports that the soldiers could not find anyone near it. The man wonders where his wife is now, because she should be in the palace. He goes in search of her in anger, because he is holding a piece of her dress that was left on a branch. Rahik flies into the palace like an angry tiger and asks the frightened priestesses where his wife is. One of them points to the bathroom, and the man immediately goes in. His anger subsides a bit when he sees a frightened maid sitting by the tub where Legria is bathing. In his opinion, it is too early for an evening toilet. Celine explains that the mistress was feeling sick and had aches and pains in her body, so she needed to warm up in the bath. Rahik asks what kind of dress she wore today and whether she left the room. The woman wonders what is wrong, but the man orders her to answer his questions. The prince orders her to get out of the water because he needs to check something. Celine assures him that my lady might get cold if she leaves the warm water right now. Legria shouts that she is wearing no clothes at all, but the Lord does not care. The girl is not going to show her naked body to a complete stranger. Is this how the Empire treats the future princess now? These words make His Majesty fall silent. The servant asks his mistress not to shout like that, because she might damage her voice. The heroine does not pay attention to her words, and says that if the man has at least a little respect, he will let her finish all the procedures and wait for her in the room. The woman will finish as soon as possible. Rahik turns around and orders her not to keep him waiting. Celine asks Milena what just happened. The girl comes out of the water fully clothed. This is terrifying, as it is the first time she has met someone so ruthless. Legria is afraid to be here. If the Bellingham Empire overcomes all its enemies, then someone will have to become the next victim of the prince. The heroine begins to cry, and Celine, seeing this, rushes to her mistress with hugs. The maid assures her that her mistress is feverish again, so they need to take off her dress and warm her up as soon as possible. The woman hugs Celine and thanks her, because if not for the intelligence of the previous priestess, she might not have survived today. The maid tells her that the weather had deteriorated too quickly and she wanted to take a change of clothes, but the owner was already soaked. However, the girl still doesn't understand why the princess immediately ducked into the bathroom, and His Majesty came to settle the matter. Legria is very sorry, but she can't tell him about it because she doesn't want to put her only friend in danger. However, Celine does not care, because she will always help the heroine. The woman once saved her life, so now it belongs to the mistress. The princess stands in front of the entrance to her chamber and tries to pretend that she is not aware of anything. None of the servants knows that she has been out for a walk today. She goes inside, but sees no one. Rahik has been standing behind her the whole time. He suddenly approaches and kisses the heroine, but she turns away. The woman is irritated and asks why he is so rude to her. The Lord says that there is rainwater on her lips. If his wife had wanted to deceive him, she would have gotten rid of it immediately. Legria pretends not to understand and steps back. However, Rahik quickly approaches and grabs the heroine. He orders her not to lie and asks her where she went today. The man is surprised that the girl is so silent today. The hand that killed the people today is resting calmly on Legria's throat, and it scares her. Suddenly, Beatriz appears and asks why the heroine is silent, since she is able to defeat the prince. She forgot that to calm Rahik down, she needs to unravel his insides. Legria tries to establish a connection with the man's mind, but he resists strongly. Suddenly, there is an explosion, and the woman falls to the floor in pain. The overlord explains that no one will be able to get inside unless he allows it. The girl does not have time to say anything and simply loses consciousness. She wakes up on the floor to someone laughing uncontrollably. Beatriz sits at the table and notes that the look on Rahik's face was worth it. It was the first time she had ever seen her husband so confused. Legria wonders what happened because the mind meld didn't work. Lady Romelia notes that she was cornered like a small animal. She lightly punches her copy on the nose and says that in general they had a hard time because the heroine was forced into this world and forced to be a divine being. The girl cries and says that she wants to go home. Beatrice apologizes because she doesn't know how to fulfill her request, And if the woman leaves, the owner of the body will not be able to return to it anyway. Her time has already passed, and today is the last meeting of the prisoners. Lady Romelia is sorry to leave the copy alone, but she slowly disappears. Legria cries even more and asks why her assistant is leaving so suddenly. Beatriz reminds her that she said from the very beginning that it was not that simple. The heroine wonders what she should do then. Lady Romelia happily tells her to survive and live life with all her heart. Also, the owner of the body had something interesting to tell, and if she were in the girl's place, she would want to know this information. They have little time, so the woman has to listen carefully. In fact, all saints die after the children they give birth to turn 10 years old. This information is carefully hidden from the divine beings, because if they find out, they will deny it and go to a monastery. Legria does not understand why the assistant ordered her to become a princess. Beatriz argues that she does not have to give birth to an heir, and the girl agrees to stay with this title until they find a way to escape. Today, the contract has come into full force, so the heroine should get out of here as soon as possible. She has to use her reputation and name to make everyone admire her. The woman need not worry, because her laughter will become a sword in the hands of her fans, and her tears will become arrows in the heart of the enemy. The princess has to find someone who will be faithful to her, but not trust anyone but herself. Beatriz hugs her copy and continues. Despite all her instructions, the heroine does not have to close her heart to love. It gives her the strength to fight and move forward. The girl doesn't know how it is possible to love and not trust. Lady Romelia assures her that with age, the copy will realize this simple truth. Beatriz's time is up, so she disappears and wishes Legria Lormel happiness. 2 weeks later, the prince sits in his study and stares silently out the window. An aide asks if they can send flowers to his wife if he is so worried about her. After all, flowers are a symbol of hope, and the Lord definitely wants to see the girl and ask about her health. Rahik wonders why he should care. The servant is convinced that his master should be honest with himself at least. His Majesty is concerned about Lady Legacy's condition, because the man is deliberately driving himself into pain and losing sleep. The prince objects, because he was not a big fan of sleep before either. 2 weeks have passed, and his wife is still unconscious. The assistant apologizes for asking and asks if the owner is really sure that it was her who was in the dungeon. Rahik doubts it, and then the brunette asks what he will do if the assumptions are true and the lady knows about their affairs in the dungeon. The Lord is about to answer when a servant suddenly comes in and announces that he will have to postpone the ceremony, which surprises everyone present. The prince goes to his wife's chambers, where all the servants and doctors have gathered. The doctor asks the heroine to start with something simple and remember when she got a bruise on her neck, but nothing comes to mind. The healer informs her that the future princess is partially anemic. Perhaps this is the result of a long-term illness that has affected her health. High fever has a bad effect on the body, so sometimes there are lapses in memory. Her Majesty's maid said that on the day Legria fainted, she was not feeling well. The assistant assumes that the heroine is just pretending to be sick. The Lord orders everyone to leave him alone with his wife. The woman asks what the doctor meant and what happened to her. Rahik sits down on the bed and announces that the woman has partial amnesia and asks her what her last memory was. The woman is not sure, but she thinks she was taking a bath. The man touches Laria's neck, because people who lie spontaneously start to rise and fall in breath. They avoid eye contact and constantly touch their nose or lips. The princess asks what he is doing, and the man explains that he is checking his health. In his head, he notes that everything is fine and touches her hand. Legria asks if the Lord is all right. Rakit does not understand why his wife suddenly said this. The girl notes that His Majesty's face has become drained and that he has a black eye. The prince makes excuses that everything is fine, and it's just insomnia. The heroine realizes that he was worried about her, but says that one cannot leave one's own condition in any way. Legria gently touches the man's cheek and assures him that he should eat well and not forget about sleep. The woman offers to help him through the bond, as she can tame half of his power in this way, because the prince looks too tired. The girl calls her lover poor and apologizes for lying unconscious for so long. Now Rahim can lie down on her lap and get some rest. At these words, the Lord blushes, but respectfully, quickly lies down and wishes her sweet dreams. In her head, the heroine thanks Beatriz for being there all the time. With her help and guidance, the woman managed to deceive the devil himself. Therefore, she owes Lady Romilly her life and will definitely survive. Her laughter will become a sword for her admirers, and her tears will become arrows for her enemies. In one of the classrooms of the school she graduated from, there was always a sign saying that some meetings can change lives. At the time, these words seemed pretentious to the heroine. Legria drinks tea and thinks that her meeting with Beatriz is the same. The princess sees her lord waking up and asks him if he wants some tea before he gets up. Now she wishes for another such meeting, preferably with a plan to escape. The couple sits at the table, and the man remarks that he hasn't slept so soundly in a long time. Legria wants to ask Rahik for something, namely to go out. The prince objects because it is not yet safe for her to go outside the palace. The woman can safely walk along one of the corridors if she is bored. The princess notes that the man will lose the bet if she stays here. In such conditions, she does not want to become a ruler, and she is unlikely to ever want to. Rahik asks why she wants to escape so badly. The heroine notes that she did not talk about any escape at all, but then she did not understand why she mentioned the contract. For Legria, it looks like a date to go to some new place and get to know His Majesty better. She asks him not to look at her like that and wonders if they will go. The husband notes that his wife likes to complicate things. The Lord says that they can go to the opera house in the middle of the week. In the morning, Joshua brought an envelope containing a personal invitation from Schumann Vukovich to his recital. The man asks them to stop smiling and answer whether they will go or not. A week later, the prince and the princess visit the opera house. To the girl's surprise, many people recognize her, so she has to be careful during her secret sneak attacks. The couple enters the hall and is confronted by two separate walls towering over the others. The woman is surprised by this incredible sight, and Rahik explains that it is a payback for a wonderful dream. Suddenly, a voice behind them says that this is an incredible coincidence. Behind the imperial majesties, Awan appears and announces that he has won a seat next to his brother. The prince menacingly asks what Moscrato is doing here. The younger man excuses himself by saying that he is the sponsor of this evening. The Lord doesn't understand how someone can sponsor music if they don't know anything about it. Awan notices the princess and introduces himself to her by his full name. The guest informs her that he is Rahik's half-brother. As His Majesty stands behind him and gets angry, the girl says her name. Awan bends down and hugs his new friend. He whispers that he has missed her and wonders if his sister has already visited the tower. Schumann is already performing on stage, and Moscrato says that they have great seats and apologizes for interrupting the date. Rahik does not hear any remorse in his brother's words. Awan notices that the elder is angry, but he is not afraid of it. The Lord wonders if his wife now understands why the imperial person is given special boxes. It is to prevent any black people from interfering with their lives. Moscrato notices that his daughter-in-law looks tired and asks if she feels well. His brother's concern makes Rahik even angrier, because the younger man knows from some source that the girl has been unconscious for 2 weeks, and the princess should deserve better treatment. The prince says that it is none of his business. Awan points out that in this case, the Lord should take better care of his wife, because the honor of a knight requires it. The men are reaching the point of quarreling where they just want to go fight. Legria is annoyed by their bickering. She pushes her brothers aside and shouts that she simply cannot hear Schumann's music because of them. She doesn't care who started the quarrel, but they both have to shut up. Rahik is a future emperor, but he behaves like a small child in a public place. The prince turns away in frustration. The princess does not understand why you and your brother are not fighting like this. Suddenly, Moscrato takes the woman's hand, and she thinks that the younger one has gone mad, because Rahik is sitting right next to them. If they make eye contact, they will sign their own death warrant. Suddenly, the heroine realizes that this is exactly what the man is trying to do. She is transported into his inner world, which, even at first glance, looks very dangerous. A crocodile comes ashore to the princess, who needs to be cleaned. In the wild jungle, these animals are very dangerous, but even they are able to get along with small birds. Legria gets closer and strokes the animal, which makes it start to cry. The heroine thinks that meeting Ekvan can save and turn her life around. The woman breaks contact, and the guest realizes that she was in the tower and saw everything. He is surprised by the princess's ingenuity and courage. He knew there was no amnesia. Meanwhile, Schumann is finishing his performance and bowing on stage to loud applause. Rahik notes that it was an incredible performance and asks if his wife enjoyed it. She says that she felt like she had been transported to a lush jungle and asks if Sinuel would like to sponsor future performances. Awan declares that it was an unforgettable experience, so he will sponsor all such performances for the rest of his life. The prince doesn't like the way they are talking to each other, so the husband hugs his wife tightly and says that the concert is over, so his brother can leave. The younger one asks why the older one is so angry, because he is not trying to take his beloved away. These words make the Lord shake even more, and Awan realizes, a little frightened, that Rahik meant it. However, he has something for him. Mosgrado puts his hand into his coat, and the woman historically guesses that he wants to finish off her husband, so she takes the Lord with her and asks the guest to stop. Rahik is a little embarrassed by her determination, but his brother simply extends the invitation. Awan wonders if she expected a dagger from him and explains that they hold a masquerade ball every theme. He doesn't care if His Majesty comes, but Mosgrado wishes with all his heart to see his dear daughter-in-law. Having said that, he disappears into the floor. The black envelope signifies a special invitation that simply cannot be rejected. This is an unspoken rule among all aristocrats. As the couple walks around the city, the prince tells them that Mosgrado is very smart. He was even able to create a guild by uniting several organizations. The masquerade ball is held once a year in honor of this union. The husband wonders how long they will talk about this young man, because his wife said she wanted to go for a walk after the performance, and now she keeps looking at this envelope. The couple walks around the city, where ordinary children run around, and the prince announces that he has agreed to her request to settle the incident with Awan. Today, he will do whatever the woman wants, but this is a one-time action. Legria knows that Rahik can only speak the language of violence. If so, she has nothing to gain by calling him names. First, she needs to let the man tell her what he really wants. The woman takes her husband by the hand and leads him through the crowd to a tent with sweets. There, she asks for 1 cream tart with whipped cream. The vendor happily says that he will cut a piece right away. Rahik asks why the princess has to buy street food, but to her, it all looks like arrogance on the part of her husband. The prince warns her that eating such food can affect her health. The girl convinces him that he shouldn't worry, because people feel happy when they enjoy food. The seller confirms her words under the angry gaze of His Majesty. The baker hands over the sweets, and the heroine enjoys the taste under Rahik's skeptical gaze. The woman wants to make the prince try it too, but he carefully turns away because he hates sweets. All the people on the street are watching them. Suddenly, one man in the crowd takes his straw out of his drink and shoots it at Legria. His Majesty senses the approaching danger and instinctively covers the future princess with his hand, which is immediately hit by a dart. The girl asks what happened, and the Lord explains that it was an attack. Blue lines are already spreading across his arm. The attackers continue to strike him with darts, but Rahik manages to lie down on the ground with his divine being, and all the weapons hit the cellar. The police arrive and try to catch the criminal, but he quickly escapes. The man holds his wife close and asks if anything has happened to her. The guard runs up to his master and orders him to search the entire neighborhood, because the attacker was definitely not acting alone. In his chambers, a doctor is already examining His Majesty. Rahik is sure that Aratum was involved. The aide notes that they are afraid of the prince's consolidation on the throne through marriage, and that this is a good opportunity for them to get rid of the government. The prince says that this is impossible, because their people have roots in the empire for a long time and deeply, so anyone could bring poison. The healer asks His Majesty to take the medicine, because the future emperor is getting worse. Rahik orders Joshua to take care of the princess until the doctor finishes his examination. The assistant takes the heroine out of the chamber just as the Lord is being given the antidote. The prince begins to scream uncontrollably, which makes Leghorn and Joshua's hearts sink. The counselor asks them not to worry, because the Lord is strong enough to withstand the pain. In the late afternoon, the doctor leaves the room. The healer reports that everything went perfectly, and His Majesty wants to see the heroine. She enters the room and sees a man who is breathing very hard. Rahik reminds her that a holy night is not as easy to destroy as it seems. However, it is not fun at all. Legria notes that the prince could have died, but he is convinced that the girl was the target of the attackers. The sacred being guesses that the Lord knew this from the very beginning, but he went for a walk with her anyway. Rahik explains that he just wanted to spend time together. The woman still doesn't understand why he did that. Legria's life means almost nothing, and she will definitely not thank him for keeping her safe from the poison. The prince must know that he did everything for nothing. The overlord assures her that he did not expect gratitude. Now the princess is the most important person for him, so every time she is in danger, Rahik will always come to her aid. Having said that, he joins his hand with Legria's. Meanwhile, at the Duchess of Lormel's estate, Giselle is crying tears when Awan finds her in such a state. He wonders why my lady is sitting alone in the middle of the night. The second daughter asks why her husband came so unexpectedly, but he says that he just missed her. Awan hands the woman an invitation to the banquet, but she objects, because the Duchess will not let the sacred creature go until she has thoroughly learned the rules of etiquette. Mosgrado assures her that her mother will brighten up if she shows her the envelope. Overjoyed by what she has heard, Giselle jumps on Awan's neck and hugs him tightly. The man assures her that this is only a small part of what he can do. Meanwhile, Legria tries to force herself to keep her mind clear. The reason Rahik saved her is not out of a regimental sense of love, but out of the need to have an heir. But her heart beats frantically when the man lays the girl down on top of him. The prince says that he has been blessed with the power of lightning, like the first emperor. He is destined to destroy the Steppe Alliance. In order to cultivate strength in the future ruler, his father taught him from a young age to give up attachment to things. Since then, the boy has always tried to fulfill his role as a prince with pride and education. But now Rahik seems to be changing and wants his wife to stay with him. He wants her so much that he believed her lying about losing her memories that night. Hearing this, Legria runs for the exit. The prince begs her not to be afraid of him. If she doesn't leave and stays with him, gives him her tenderness, they can be happy. With these words, the heroine flies out of the room and leaves the lonely lord alone with his painful life. Legria, standing in the corridor, thinks that she could have run away and settled somewhere on the edge of the world. Celine asks her milady if she is okay. The woman only wanted a simple and carefree life, but now she is coughing. You can't just take and leave the fate of the future princess. Now it's time to worry whether the heroine will survive at all. She cannot redeem her own fate from the hands of this world. And the most important question is why Legria's heart beats so fast when she looks at Rahik. Perhaps the girl has linked their minds too often, otherwise she wouldn't be so worried. And yet the princess recognizes that she has become part of a new world. Whatever the reason, the Lord saved her, even more than once, and this cannot be denied. It's probably natural to feel sympathy for someone who has saved you more than once, but you shouldn't give in. Soon the situation will become hopeless. It's time to end this play. The woman must return to where she came from. With these thoughts in mind, Legria writes a letter and watches the prince's carriage leave in the morning. She gives the letter to Celine and asks her to pass it on to Sir Civilic. A little later, Fodor arrives at Her Majesty's house, who asks him to sit down. The aristocrat apologizes and offers to get straight to the point. He throws the letter on the table and asks if what is written here is true, because Fodor cannot believe that Beatriz has left her body. The girl sadly confirms that it is true and that the vessel belongs to her alone now. The heroine wonders if Cecil is okay. The captain of the knights does not understand why the princess sent the letter to him. The woman explains that she needs help escaping from the palace. Beatriz told the copy that if she gives birth to Rahik's child, she will die. Fodor confidently says that this is her fate. The girl denies it because she knows that the aristocrat wants to help her with all his heart. When they linked their minds, the woman heard his feelings for Beatriz. Civilic asks permission to sit down and asks what Lady Ramel Legria has told her. The princess recounts all her friend's words, and the man confirms that it really does sound like his beloved. The heroine says that she wants to return to the world she came from. Putting her hand on Fyodor's palm, the woman explains that if she was able to get here, there must be a way out. Cecil says that when he found out that Beatriz's soul was alive, he also looked for similar options. According to legend, there must be a cave that leads to the divine world. The man thinks that this myth is unlikely to be true. Legria asks him if he can take her to this place. The aristocrat is convinced that he must first meet a seraph. These are the saints who have learned the truth about their fate and have promised not to marry. Instead of bearing a child from one man, they help some holy knights stabilize the energy. The heroine has no idea why she has this meeting. Fodor suggests that the seraph might know. The woman asks how she can meet these people. Cecil tells her that there is a masquerade ball this week, and everyone will be wearing masks, so it is a good opportunity to hide their identity. The man is about to leave when the princess throws herself into his arms. The heroine notes that Beatriz missed her friend very much until the last minute of her life. Dietrich rides along with Fodor in the carriage and tells him that he is worried that this legend may be just a fiction and nothing more. The boy doesn't understand why his captain would want to do this, since the saints called to this world have never returned before. The knight replies that he cannot let the girl die. She has remained in this body and is unlikely to lose it. Dietrich realizes this because his sister has made her choice. Fodor, looking out the window, sadly notes that he has also decided to return Legria to the divine world. The events shift to the day of the masquerade, which takes place at the Mosgrado family estate. The imperial couple moves through the hall, and the woman notes that it is quite funny because everyone recognizes them, so masks are simply not needed. The butler greets the guests and takes them to a table. The prince sits his future wife at the table, and he takes off his mask and announces that he has to open the ball with a dance with a noble person. The servant begs the lord to cover his face, but Rahik assures him that there is no point. For the heroine, this is really funny. When she dies in 10 years, one of these ladies will become the next princess, because the man will need a woman to raise an heir. A voice from the side says that the prince has too many responsibilities. Fodor leans closer to the heroine and tells her that in 2 hours, a seraph will be waiting for her on the balcony. The aristocrat dancing with His Majesty assures him that she has been waiting for this meeting for a long time, but the lord does not hear her. He sees Legria leaving with Cecil and pushes the woman away. Fodor brings his companion to the door and tells her that she has only 10 minutes, and he will go to the hall himself so as not to arouse any suspicion. The princess is very worried and hopes that the seraphim will also be a Korean. The girl thinks of the best way to greet him, but her new friend does not let her start first. She exclaims that she cannot get used to all these balls and receptions. The heroine is surprised and happy to learn that the seraphim is Korean. Legria did not even expect to hear her native language in the whole world, so she wonders what kind of person the sacred being was before she was transported. When she closes the door, the stranger immediately asks what Her Majesty wanted to find out. Cecil answers all the questions and says that she doesn't remember exactly what she did in her past life, but she knows a little bit about taekwondo and suspects that she was on the national team. The woman also managed to get married and have a child. Seraphim orders her to get to the point, and the heroine reminds her that Fodor told her about a cave that leads to the divine world. Cecil confirms that she was there but could not return. In fact, this legend may well be true. The woman wonders why Legria wants to return so badly, because she is a princess and can do anything. That's why the heroine wants to go back, because all the holy knights are abnormal. Cecil agrees and clarifies that the best of them was Fodor. The girl continues to ask about the cave, but the seraph warns her that she will regret it. Many of the saints she brought there went crazy from the realization that they would never be able to return home. There is a knock on the door, so the princess is actively interested in where the portal is. Cecil tells her about Mosgrado, with whom Legria must make friends, because this cave is located in Luzon, which is under the control of the family. The guards are about to break down the door, so the heroine wants to offer Cecil another meeting, but she is already descending the rope from the balcony and leaving. This makes the woman seem even stranger to the princess. Legria abruptly comes to the door and says that she is dizzy, so the aristocrat went out to the balcony to get some air, and the knights have already made such a fuss. The guards are ashamed to report that His Majesty was looking for his wife, so they were in a hurry. The heroine exhales with relief, but her head is filled with thoughts of how to meet Awan. A guest flies around the corner, and the princess recognizes Giselle. The second daughter orders her to apologize immediately because she almost fell to the floor when she was hit. The sister grabs the princess by the arm and asks why she is silent. Legria realizes that the impostor wants to force her to bow her head in front of the crowd. Perhaps in the divine world, this could happen, but there is a caveat. Now the heroine is too much for her sister. Legria takes off her mask and reminds herself that she was reborn in the body of a scandalous mad dog. The princess assures her that she will apologize. However, Giselle should apologize first. The second daughter shouts that it was a woman who pushed her, so she has to pick up the fan. The princess is furious and wonders if she heard that Giselle accused Her Majesty on purpose. The girl orders her sister to start playing sports because it is in fashion now, and then it will be easier to pick up the fan. If she does so, Legria will forgive her previous rudeness. The guards come running and ask Her Majesty if everything is all right. The princess explains that there was a small misunderstanding. Giselle picks up the accessory with tears in her eyes and apologizes to Legria. The heroine steps on the fan and says that it is very stupid to throw accusations. The girl tells the servants that Lady Lormel is not feeling well, so they should accompany the lady to her chambers. The princess says that she will return to His Majesty herself. Giselle silently gets up and follows the guards. Behind her, Awan appears. He wanted to scare his sister, but somehow it didn't work. The woman scolds him, because you can't sneak up on people from behind. Mosgrado picks up the future mistress and asks her if she likes this position. Legria shyly shouts for him to stop right away. The man does not listen to her and asks her not to resist because she will not get out anyway. The woman is convinced that if Rahik finds out, he will kill them both. Then Awan has no other choice. Mosgrado suggests that his frightened sister hold her breath for a while, and they are already plunging into darkness. The couple is transported to the room of the ball's director. He explains that he can move through space using his power. Legria wants to be put on her feet, and Awan does as he is told. The girl immediately puts her arm over the man, but he is only amused. The woman asks where they are going, and Mosgrado tells her that he just wanted to take care of his sister, because she returned to the hall sad. It seems that the conversation with the seraphim did not go well. The princess asks him how he knows this, and the young man says that he is the master of the evening. Taking the divine being's hand, Awan notes that he is on her side, so she should tell him about everything he is interested in. The heroine recalls Cecil's words that if she is looking for a cave, she must get support from someone from the Mosgrado family. Legria talks about the cave from the legend and that she wants to visit it. She approaches the man closely and asks if he can help. Awan tiredly notes that he could take his sister to the end of the world, but he cannot promise anything. The only sensible thing for her to do is to run away under the protection of his family. To be honest, the Citron wouldn't mind kidnapping the princess himself. However, then the prince's faction would accuse his brother of treason, and a civil war would begin. Everything will be much more legitimate if Legria leaves Rahik herself and asks for the protection of the Archduke. They will not be able to refuse a woman suffering from a tyrant. The princess realizes that they are trying to convey to her that she must get to the Mosgrado's domain on her own. The future ruler already knows that her ally has a plan. The man unwittingly notes that the divine being is too smart even for his brother. Awan announces that every summer a tournament is held in the forests, although it is more like a hunt. The captured barbarians of the Steppe Alliance are released into the forest, where they fight for their lives against the monsters bred by Rahik. Mosgrado notices that the princess is unhappy about something, but it is understandable because she has to run through hunting traps, Steppe Alliance prisoners and monsters, while dodging the holy knights with their lightning and swords. Awan wonders if the woman understands why he has shown her the way to the imperial secret, because it is not just to complain about his older brother's bad behavior. When the day of the tournament comes, her sister will not be able to do without an assistant. Legria recalls that there was a mysterious man in the dungeon. Mosgrado explains that Vikan is the real pride of the Steppe Alliance. He is one of the best warriors, that is, literally the best game. And the better the animal, the harder and more interesting it is to hunt. The woman has to use this warrior to escape to the Archduke's house. The young man notices his interlocutor's face and suspects that she is very scared. The girl confesses that only Awan scares her the most, because the reason why he helps her is still unclear. At first, she thought he was motivated by envy of his brother, but over time, she became more and more inclined to believe that there was something special. Mosgrado goes to the window and notes that the current duke is not friends with princes, and the reason is very interesting. Archduke Mosgrado is still eligible to inherit the throne. His people can't wait to announce that their lord is paired with a future princess. In one generation, only one woman is crowned as a princess, meaning that the one who wins the heart of his sister will become the ruler. Awan advocates that it is necessary to stop deceiving the saints and stop the abduction of souls. He believes that divine beings have the right to choose. The man assures Legria that if she chooses him, Mosgrado will flood her with freedom. The heroine realizes that she cannot blindly trust her ally, because it is impossible to understand when this smiling man is telling the truth and when he is lying. It will be difficult to escape from Rahik with his help. The girl does not know if Awan himself wants to become the next prince. Someone calls out to Legria in the corridor and presses her against the wall. His Majesty says that they are not playing hide-and-seek and asks why he has to look for her. The girl assures him that it is an honor, because the Lord has finally paid her some attention. The man reaches his hand to the heroine's neck, but stops halfway, and she asks if he wanted to strangle her again. The prince assures her that he wants to see what is going on in his wife's mind and what business she has with the Duke of Mosgrado. The woman wonders if he is really jealous. Rahik advises her to hide better if she wants to escape so badly. Legria says that he will not achieve anything with his threats, and then the Lord swears that he will put her in chains. His Majesty grabs the divine being's hand and pulls her palm toward him. The girl screams for him to let go immediately, because she will never let him put a collar or anything like that on her again. Suddenly, Legria feels that it doesn't hurt at all, and turns her attention to her fingers. Ashamed, Rahik explains that it is for her. Now there will be fewer people who want to ask his wife to dance. The princess looks at her fingers and sees a beautiful ring with a green stone sparkling. His Majesty says that no one in the whole world would make such a face if they received a gift from the prince himself. Legria wonders if he presented her with a wedding ring. Rahik tells her that there are no traditions in their world, but he tries to do everything as if it were divine. Running his hand over his future wife's cheek, the man orders the knights to take her to her chambers, and he has to leave for a while. The heroine stops the Lord and asks him if he loves her. Rahik does not answer and walks on in silence. The main leaders of this world have already gathered in the hall, along with Awan, who is killed by the fact that Legria returns to her brother every time. The prince arrives and orders them to get down to business right away. The Duchess announces that the topic of their meeting is barbarians and what they protect. It is incredibly difficult to get the fruit, because the steppe people are problematic in themselves, but most importantly, it is impossible to find their hiding places. Rahik reports that the imperial family is attacking the alliance with a further offensive on a rhythm. The Duchess reports that everyone knows this boilerplate goal for the people, but only the fruit is truly important. Mosgrado notes that his brother hasn't found out the location of the Alliance's base yet, so it's worth giving the prisoner to the best fighters from Quays to avoid wasting time. The prince asks for patience, because he will soon get all the information he needs, and if someone is not satisfied, they can capture the barbarian themselves. And if in doubt, they should wait for the tournament that will take place in a few days. One of the generals asks for an explanation of His Majesty's deep plan. Awan tells him that his brother is going to turn the execution of the best warrior of the Steppe Alliance into a spectacle. Vikan is able to control any animal on the whole earth and see the world through their eyes. He who can control even the smallest mouse is quite capable of saving his comrades from punishment. However, Rahik prefers a harsher method that has always worked. If a fighter is cut off from access to sunlight, which is sacred to them, everything becomes simple. This will significantly weaken Vikan, and further use of force to torture him will deprive him of his power. And then, on the day of the tournament, he will be forced to watch his comrades die one by one until he finally breaks down. Because it is impossible to see those you love being destroyed and remain sane. In the end, all his pride, his faith in life after death, will be destroyed and shattered before his eyes. Now the commander understands what His Majesty is doing. So, the meeting can be over. Rahik stands up and is about to leave when his brother says that he knows the measure of keeping prisoners. Before leaving the room, the prince warns Awan one last time. A message has come from his secret informant in the Mosgrado house. It says that his brother knew that Giselle was Legria's sister from the divine world. Awan explodes with anger. The Lord continues that the owner of the ball invited his second daughter on purpose today and allowed her to approach the princess. Was the brother trying to provoke a substitution phenomenon? As soon as His Majesty heard today that Giselle had confronted his wife, the man barely resisted the urge to kill Awan. Mosgrato shouts that Rahik made it all up and there is no evidence. The prince knows that his brother took Legria to his room because it takes 10 to 30 minutes from the moment of contact to the substitution, so it makes sense that the trickster wanted to make sure that everything went well. Fortunately, the substitution phenomenon did not occur. However, if Awan approaches the princess again, he will be killed. Mosgrado reminds him that no one dares to threaten him and that he is the head of a guild of powerful mercenaries. The man does not react to this attack and repeats once again that no one should come near his wife. In a few days, the flowering month that begins spring will begin, and when it passes, Legria will officially become a princess. She needs to complete all the preparations for her escape through the forest before the summer comes. Looking at the ring, the heroine must not forget that autumn does not exist for her. On the day of the gladiatorial fights, she rides alongside her husband. Joshua tells us that last month, Her Majesty asked him to teach her to ride. The aide assumed that she would quit as soon as she mastered the basics, but the woman's skills are quite good. Honestly, the servant could not even think that the princess could delve into something. Joshua asked why she needed such skills. The heroine replied that she wanted to take part in gladiatorial battles and gain respect as the mother of a future prince. As Rahik knows, Legria must gain trust among the knights. In this case, everything will be fine in the country, even if the ruler is gone for a long time. Later, the assistant gives his master a crossbow, whose speed and power are several times better than a bow. No matter how strong the warrior from the Steppe Alliance is, the prince will be able to end his life with one shot. Joshua wonders if His Majesty would like to try it. Legria looks out at the forest and thinks that Awan's point is quite simple and clear. For her, the only way to survive is to rely on the power of his family. But if her husband receives love from the emperor and becomes a prince, there is no telling what will happen to Rahik. His Majesty comes closer to his wife and hands her a crossbow, explaining that she must be able to use such an elementary weapon. The woman sees with fear that Vikan is being placed in front of her, and the prince orders her to shoot at the apple on his head. The princess does not want to shoot a man, but the Lord assures her that he is a barbarian. Rahik advises the heroine to look around, because everyone is watching to see if she has the courage. She has to prove that she can participate in gladiatorial battles. Legria begins to cry and shouts that they don't know where the arrow will hit, so the woman simply cannot shoot. The husband takes the crossbow from her hands and hits the apple on the barbarian's head. While the wife is shaking with fear, the prince makes his speech. Unfortunately, the future princess will not be able to join the gladiatorial battles, so the maids have to help her change her clothes and keep her in the tent until the hunt is over. In the evening, Joshua reports that the preparations for the hunt are complete, and they have fed the prisoners meat to give them a little extra strength. The assistant sees that his master has a very sad face and asks what happened. The man tells him that his wife asked him if he loved her. Joshua says that he has a deep respect for his master, but from time to time he worries about him. The master should show a little more concern for Her Majesty. After all, the prince knows how to treat all those socialites well. Rahik thinks that he is already very caring, but his assistant asks him to be more sincere. Even if it's a lie, he needs to make the princess feel that he loves her deeply. His Majesty assures her that there is nothing to worry about, because after the wedding he will fulfill his duty as a husband and father. In the evening, all the barbarians were lined up in front of the forest, and Viken was tied to a tree. Rahik says it's hard to believe, but he wants peace more than anything. Peace, obtained after the capture of the entire continent. The barbarian has to tell him where their base is, and then the Lord will release all his comrades. However, the soldier does not want to, and His Majesty gives Joshua a sign with his hand. The aide tells the barbarians that they will have a chance for freedom if the savages can get out of the forest alive. He points a crossbow at the crowd and orders them to run. The prince knows that Viken can call animals, so he will see everything that happens in the forest. Rahik will not destroy him until he gets the information he needs. Instead, the barbarian will witness his loved ones in pain. The man must remember that he had the opportunity to save them, but he chose to die. The barbarian tearfully asks why the Lord goes so far while he points an arrow at his friends. The prince recalls Legria's face and the same question and accidentally hits a tree, so the prisoner manages to escape. Rahik is annoyed that he missed. The Lord reminds him that he is going to drag all of Viken's friends here until he speaks. He warned that the barbarian would pay for showing pity to the devil. This battle ends only after the savage tells His Majesty everything. Meanwhile, the heroine sits in the tent and wonders if the day will ever come when Rahik will pay for all his atrocities. Now, she also needs to come up with a plan to escape from the chambers. Suddenly, Awan appears from the floor and tells them that his sister is as beautiful as ever. The dress is also gorgeous, but a bit uncomfortable for the occasion. The girl tells Sinuel that she managed to get here because she showed a desire to gain respect among the knights, but the Lord definitely suspected something. Now the heroine cannot get to Viken because the tent is guarded by guards. Taking his sister in his arms, Mosgrado says that all problems can be solved, and the woman should already remember how they moved last time. As Viken listens to his friends being killed, the guards begin to disappear. This is all the work of Awan, who is already standing next to the prisoner and releasing him from his handcuffs. His work is done, and then it's up to Legria. Now she needs to get in touch with the barbarian and help him recover. The girl leans over the man and introduces herself. She says she can help him leave this place. Viken knows that she is the crown princess. Therefore, the barbarian does not understand why she should run away. The heroine explains that she wants to leave here no less than he does, because she wants freedom. Before the couple can enter into a mental connection, Mosgrado leaves them. Awan says that he will be waiting for his sister and that she shouldn't be late. Viken extends his hand to the rescuer and says that he will help her. The guards guarding the area see the prisoner carrying the princess on his back. They think that the savage has kidnapped her on purpose and run to inform His Majesty. Meanwhile, the Lord has already captured several barbarians, and Joshua wonders if he wants to destroy them personally. For the first time, Rahik's heart is in turmoil, but he cannot show his weaknesses to his subjects. The man makes an excuse that he doesn't want to smell blood today. A guard comes running and announces that Viken has escaped into the forest. The assistant is immediately angry, but is reassured by his master, because it is only for the best for them. He ran towards the forest where the hunting takes place anyway, and catching the prey is not a problem at all. The guard notes that the barbarian was also wearing a future princess. He saw with his own eyes how Viken took Her Majesty hostage. Joshua sees the Lord rushing into the forest and orders his servants to follow him. Rahik cannot contain his anger. Sitting on the barbarian's back, the girl notices that she can no longer hold on. The savage holds her hands and asks her to be careful, because this forest is very large and confusing, like a labyrinth. If you turn the wrong way, you can search for the path to freedom forever. Viken looks up at the sky and notices that it might start to rain. Legria yells at the man to stop, and lightning strikes in front of them. Through the curtain of smoke, a voice is heard saying that he has had enough of the heroine's cute antics. He's been turning a blind eye to everything, but it's starting to get to him. Rahik doesn't think she could have done it on her own, so he asks her to tell him honestly if it was Sinuel's doing. Viken says that things are going badly, because if the devil is hunting them, it will be difficult to escape. The man asks for more time while he calls one of the beasts for help. The Lord says that he will not punish his wife and will arrange everything as if the barbarian had taken her in his womb. Therefore, the girl should return before it is too late. The woman protests because she doesn't want to be left to make decisions for herself again. The prince repeats that a divine being has no choice. A princess also has feelings and a will. Perhaps Rahik was raised as a worthy ruler, so he became accustomed to death. However, Legria is not ready for this. Having said that, the heroine takes off the ring she has been given and throws it to the ground. His Majesty is overcome with anger, and Vikan puts his back to her to escape as quickly as possible. The husband shouts for his wife to stop, but a wolf suddenly attacks him and knocks Rahik down. He tries to call out to the divine being, but it is already far away. Meanwhile, in the castle, a pot falls out of Celine's hands, and she thinks that she is a little confused today, and her head is full of sad thoughts. Fodor appears before the maid and informs her that Her Majesty was looking for a past priestess to help her. Celine nervously asks where her mistress is now, and Sir Savaleke asks her to follow him if she wants to find out. For a moment, the girl doubts, but quickly recovers and hurries after Fodor. Perhaps something has happened to the princess, and that is why she is being called. Rahik has already managed to kill the animal when the servants run up to him. The Lord announces that the gladiatorial fights are over. The guards have to find all the savages in the forest and kill them. Joshua wonders what they should do with the crown princess. Should they take her alive or kill her as well? The Lord orders him to bring his bow and tells him that he will take care of everything himself. At night, he catches up with the fugitives again. The more the heroine wanted to escape, the more fate was on the side of the one in whose eyes there was no longer any life. And the more trials she presented to the one whose energy was running wild. It was as if she wanted to check whether Legria could cope. Vikan had been running for a long time without stopping, so the girl thought he was tired. The barbarian confirms that his body has not yet fully healed. However, at this pace, they will definitely not be caught. The heroine snuggles closer to the man and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. However, Vikan can't stand it for long without rest. The barbarian stops and looks up at the sky. Now they can rest for a while. They climb a tall tree, which is a bit uncomfortable, but they have no other option. The savage goes in search of food and leaves the princess alone. Luckily, they escape from Rahik's clutches, but everything is still scary, and the girl cannot calm down. She is worried not even for herself, but for the lives of her loved ones. Suddenly, a snake appears behind the heroine and is about to attack, but Vikan stops it. Looking into the animal's eyes, he informs it that the deity who rules the forest has sent a messenger. He is here to inform them about the attackers who are still looking for them. The creature believes that since the woman has entered the forest, she now belongs to it. But the warrior of the steppes is here, so everything will be fine. He gives Legria a very juicy and watery fruit, which is perfect for quenching her thirst. The heroine tastes it and admires the taste. The princess asks why the barbarian is not eating, but he simply turns away and says that he does not like fruit. The divine being sees him grinding herbs and asks what they are for. Vikan tells him that it is an ojok, which is used for wounds. He turns to Laria, who is sitting awkwardly behind him, and sharply smears the herb on her cheek. The wound instantly heals from such actions. The barbarian smiles and says that the creature will always be beautiful. Tomorrow they will set off again. They need to move to the edge of the forest. Maybe they can find some food. Vikan turns away and wants to treat his back. The heroine gets up and decides to help him, because he also needs to heal his wounds. The woman notes that it must be hard to handle her. As soon as they find a safe place, Legria will no longer be bothered by the barbarian. The man announces that the princess freed him and helped him see the sacred sun, so he is grateful to her. These words bring a smile to the heroine's lips. Rahik's voice is heard, and Vikan, with his hand over the woman's mouth, orders her to be quiet because a demon has come. Varto searched the neighborhood, but found no trace of the fugitives. There are more than 2,000 knights in the forest, and there is no escape. The Lord is convinced that his wife is still here and orders them to climb up the trees. Whoever finds the prisoners will receive a huge reward. Vikan tells the maiden not to look back and to run away if something happens to him. One of the guards is climbing a tree with knives, and suddenly a leaf catches his eye. Taking advantage of this, the barbarian jumps on the man's face and knocks him down. The servant falls to the other people below, and everyone fusses over him. When the dust from the blow clears, the prince spots Vikan. The guards immediately form a semicircle in front of His Majesty and point their crossbows forward. Rahik orders them to stand down, and again offers Legria to return, and he will make sure that no one knows what she has done. The princess objects, because she will never be captured again. The Lord asks if she really thinks she can find freedom and live to her heart's content. He asks what the heroine's real name is, but she cannot answer. The man explains that her name, the clothes she wears, even her body, nothing belongs to the princess. Vikan shouts that she should not be deceived by this demon. His Majesty asks her not to be afraid, but without him, Legria is nothing. He extends his hand to the girl, but she confidently says that she is no longer Legria. She has renounced this name and title. Joshua asks his host, who has his hand over his eyes, what they should do. Rahik orders them to shoot, but to leave the fugitives alive and bring them to him. When the battalion is ready to shoot, the knights are surrounded by poisonous snakes. This deity of the forest came to protect his property, that is, the heroine. The Lord wonders if Vikan is going to escape again using dastardly tricks. The barbarian sees a piece of forest where they can run into and asks the girl to hold on tight. Rahik takes his bow and activates his power, but suddenly remembers Legria's question about whether he loves her and lowers his weapon with a heavy look. The heroine sees this and simply turns away. Vikan explains that if they run at this pace for about a day, they will be able to get out of the forest. Seeing the girl's condition, he urgently looks for a cave to rest. Even there, they won't be able to find some food and light a fire because the knights are everywhere. The barbarian says that the heroine can sleep for a few hours because it should be quite quiet. Suddenly, Legria starts crying and says that she doesn't understand anything at all, so Rahik's words start to seem true. No one knows that she can do it on her own. If so, then why try to escape? The woman doesn't even know who she is. All she remembers are fragments of her past life, Beatriz, and waking up in a new world. Legria is forced to live in someone else's body, causing harm to her host. Vikan asks her to stop, because she shouldn't be doing this to herself. Everyone who is born under the sun must live the life they are given. The girl suggests that she would have been better off just dying. Seeing that the heroine cannot calm down, the barbarian changes his tactics. He says that as soon as he saw Legria, he decided to use her as a means of escape. However, now the man is moving closer to her and hugs her tightly by the shoulders. His body is warm, so he must help the princess stay warm and get some sleep. The couple lies together on the cave, and Vikan says that the gods constantly send trials. Of course, sometimes it can be offensive, but he wants the woman to know one truth. It doesn't matter where you come from or what name you've had until now. What really matters is what you will be called in a new place and where you will go next. The man asks what kind of life the divine being wants, and she replies that she will think about it. The heroine falls asleep, and Vikan leans closer to her face. However, the steppe warrior stops halfway and shakes his head. The barbarian hears orders from above to light a fire. The battalion commander is told that the fire is being directed along the border of the forest, so the prisoners will not be able to escape. The woman orders the knights to leave before it is too late. A mouse appears behind the warrior, and she chases the animal away, which immediately runs to Vikan. The girl notices the strange eyes of the attacker and is frightened and asks what he wants to do. After that, only screams are heard. In the morning, the heroine wakes up in a cave and the barbarian throws her new clothes and gives her time to change. The size should fit, and it will be easier to move around. Later, Rahik stands and watches the trees burn. The knight reports that some time ago the battalion commander was attacked by Vikan, but he has not been found yet. An active search is underway. The overlord, looking at the newcomer menacingly, orders him to take him to the place where the murder took place. Legria has already managed to change her clothes and go out to Vikan. Before they go any further, the man has something to say. Unfortunately, they have little time left. The forest is on fire, and the enemies are getting closer, so there is only one way. Through the forest border, but the heroine must continue the journey alone. The girl objects because they have to go together. Vikan explains that if they escape together, the blood of many will be shed. Someone has to stop Rahik. The barbarian does not want to run because he, like a divine being, does not want to become someone's warrior. The man will only find happiness if he returns home. He will not be able to bear the smell of pain that war will cause when he is a prisoner of the Lord. Touching the girl's cheek, Vikan says that she is completely different, so she must survive. Here their paths diverge and the barbarian goes to his death. Legria runs after her husband and begs him to stay alive.